a little short run.
Ready?
Anytime.
John,
Oh, John Porter.
yeah.
Get out here by
Little
6:30.
run is
Nope, I do not see.
He said he wasn't going to be.
that'll be a regular.
At this
one.
time, I will call
Yeah.
this meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We have a agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? The agenda is also up on the board there. If there are no changes, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item then is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on January 13th, as well as the special joint city council hospital board that was held on January 14th. The council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Mike to approve the minutes as they have been prepared. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 2 is the public hearing. This will be the public hearing on the consideration of the sale of the hospital to Avera Health. We will have a public hearing on this, and then following the public hearing, then we'll consider the action. So in conducting this public hearing, first off, it's a small room. However, if it is acceptable with the audience and the council, I'd prefer to stay in this room because the sound is working. And we could move it to the auditorium. However, the sound, both for the audience as well as the playback on cable access television, simply would not be as good. So if everybody's comfortable, I realize there are some people standing, but if everybody's comfortable, I would prefer to stay in this room. As we conduct this public hearing, this is not a informational forum. Those that have been held. The public hearing is to present viewpoints, present information. There may be questions that come up. Those questions, we will really probably not get into a question and answer type format, but those questions, hopefully at the end, we'll ask the appropriate people to address those questions. Okay? As a public hearing, we will want to be sure everything's on the record, and so I will ask that anyone who wishes to speak as part of the public hearing would come forward and use the microphone. And just a note about the microphone is that that microphone, you need to speak directly into it for it to, if you're off to the side, it doesn't pick up so well. Okay? So with that, I will open this public hearing. And I believe I'll call first on Art Olson, who is a member of the hospital board, but also served as the chairperson of the negotiation team that presented the recommendation first to the hospital board a week ago tonight, and then the hospital board, of course, is presenting their recommendation to the city council. Art, first off, Art, thank you for your service and the time that you've put in over the past, I won't even say how many meetings, how many hours you've devoted to this. Art?
Mr. Mayor and council, I want to thank you on behalf of the board for inviting us here for presentation of this proposal at the public hearing. And I think that's all I have to say right now. Turn it over to, can I say it again? Mayor and council, on behalf of the entire board, I thank you for inviting us here to present our proposal. And we'll now turn it over to Dan McInerney.
Dan, for the record, we'll have you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Dan McInerney. I'm a lawyer from Minneapolis. I've been working with the hospital officials and the negotiating team on behalf of the
And you want to tip your
hospital.
mic a little higher and then, yeah, that,
Is that picking up better?
It is picking up better. Tom, maybe you will adjust it as you talk, so.
You gotta lean into it really good to pick it up. That goes for the council members too. If you really want the amplification to work well, you gotta lean into it a little bit, and also will help for picking up on the tape. Thanks.
For the members of the audience, this is a learning process for all of us using this technology. So, Dan?
I wasn't informed that technology would be stressful tonight, but Dan McInerney, a lawyer from Minneapolis. I worked with the hospital officials and the negotiating team on behalf of the hospital and the city to come up with the proposal that will be before you tonight. There is a PowerPoint document that I believe council members have, and I believe that enough copies are available in the back of the room for members of the audience to review as I go through that PowerPoint document. Mary Martins and I will go through that document, which is a basic summary of the transaction that you will be asked to consider hopefully tonight. And I will then go through some of the changes to the transactional documents since the council last saw them to explain them. And we can take it from there, whatever the council's pleasure is. Mary, if you could come up and talk about the rationale for privatization, we can then move on to the summary of the transaction.
Mary Martins, President and CEO of Avera Marshall Regional Medical Center. Thanks as well for having us here this evening. Wanted to just, again, ground us in the mission of the organization, that is to make a positive impact in the lives and health of persons and communities by providing quality health care services which are guided by our values of hospitality, compassion, and stewardship. Our vision then sets forth a course of direction for the future, and that is really about being recognized as a regional leader, identified by our scope and depth of breadth of services, as well as partnerships with physicians and excellence in customer service and commitment to growth and technology as we move forward. As you all know, the vision for health really began, or healthcare rather, in this community really began in the 1940s when a group of citizens and civic community leaders got together and felt that they needed to create a stimulus to build the first hospital. In 1945, there was an original gift, and that, combined with an original bond, later paid back by operations of the medical center, opened the first hospital in 1950. The stipulations of that gift were that the facility be open to all and to serve all regardless of ability to pay. That mission of the medical center continues today, and the vision that is very similar in the 1940s continues for health in this community in 2009 and beyond. The system benefits has been a number, and really to, again, ground ourselves into the process that brings us here this evening. This is our board believes that it is part of an orderly process that really began in 2002, which there was a challenge by the mayor at that time to evaluate the healthcare services in terms of breadth and depth and scope of specialty services as well as physician recruitment, and to set forth a course of action that would move the organization forward towards that of being a regional center for healthcare in this part of the state. The board went through a very exhaustive process, also led by ART at that time, that took probably 18 to 24 months in total, leading to a decision that the best strategic partner for the medical center after those months of due diligence was the Avera Health System. Since then, Avera has demonstrated much success as a partner to this community through things such as substantial purchasing power and lower capital costs, as well as improved services through physician recruitment and enhanced specialty services. And again, that in turn for the community creates economic development and growth. We have talked a number of times with the community in public forums and with the council regarding the future of healthcare. Obviously, you know that the healthcare landscape is changing significantly even as we stand here. We have a governor who is required to balance the budget and have heard some things about his plans today in regard to the Health and Human Services budget rather. We also have a new president last week who will set forth a course of health policy changes designed to change the way healthcare is designed and delivered and paid for as we move forward. In addition, there is a need for regionalization of services to secure rural healthcare, as well as access to capital and need for increasing efficiency. Couple that with the challenging workforce projections and the need for physician-hospital integration and resources to address the needs of physicians in this community and in this region. So the proposal that Art has talked to you about really is about solidifying the future for the medical center, creating one of resiliency and flexibility, and again, repositioning the medical center as we move forward in the days, months, and years ahead. So at this point, Dan will walk you through the PowerPoint.
I'll pick up the presentation at slide 6. This transaction is one in which a sole membership interest will be created in Wiener Memorial Medical Center, which is a nonprofit Minnesota corporation, tax exempt under Section 501C of the Internal Revenue Code. That membership interest would be sold to Avera Health under this transaction. The transaction would close a little after November 1st, 2009. The primary reason for the closing being later in the year is that the debt that has been incurred on behalf of the hospital cannot be defeased until after November 1st, 2009. Now, one of the things that the hospital and the city was interested in was how the sales proceeds of the transaction could be used. Our analysis of the law suggests that the proceeds can only be used for public purposes, that is a facts and circumstances judgment initially for the city to make, and that one of the purposes for which the proceeds can be used under our statutes is to make grants to the medical center. So that's sort of the legal backdrop for several parts of the transaction. One of the things that was important in the negotiation with Avera Health was acquiring an understanding of the nature of their nonprofit philosophy. They asked us to consider this in connection with the economics of the transaction. Unlike for-profit businesses, they don't view their relationship with the regional facilities with which they are affiliated as one in which excess dollars are scraped out of the till at the end of the year. The philosophy of Avera Health, as they've explained it to us, is to leave the assets in the community to benefit the community. One of the things that came out of that philosophy was a request on the part of Avera Health that some of the assets that are restricted on the balance sheet, these are primarily liquid assets of the hospital, remain with the hospital as its ownership changes. In discussing the nature of that request with Avera Health, the negotiators on the city and hospital side were able to elicit a series of promises from Avera Health relative to the operation and performance of the hospital after the transaction, as partly in compensation for the discount that Avera Health was requesting in this transaction. And we'll get to those promises a little bit later in the presentation. One of the things that the council asked when we spoke with them last, I think on the 14th of January, was a little crisper identification of the flow of funds in terms of the transaction, and we've tried to do that on the subsequent pages here. If you look on page 9, you will see how the financial details of the Avera offer came together. The offer would result in a $38.5 million cash payment to the city. How did we get there? The city and the hospital commissioned an independent appraisal of the hospital's value. The independent appraisal of the value of the hospital, if it were, for example, to be sold to a for-profit business, was about $63 million, $600,000. The promises that we'll talk about in a minute that Avera Health will make if this transaction is approved were valued by the appraiser at between $10 and $15 million. We picked the midpoint of that range for purposes of illustration, just like we picked the midpoint of the range of valuation of the enterprise should it be purchased by a for-profit entity. The transaction would require cash to be taken out of the hospital to give to the city on closing, and the adjusted value of the hospital, according to this analysis, is $45,463,500. Avera Health asks that that value be discounted, that they be given a discount of $12,600,000. And if you were to approve this transaction, you would be acknowledging a discount in consideration of the nonprofit nature of Avera Health and in partial consideration for the promises that we'll go through a little bit later. The cash that would be coming from Avera Health would be $32,863,500. That would be coupled with the $5,600,000 to produce a cash payment of $38.5 million. Now, what would the city do under this approach with the $38.5 million? Well, the city is a debtor on the hospital, and the city needs to take care of that debt, and so the bond debt of approximately $18.7 million would have to be paid off. And it wouldn't really be paid off; it would be defeased. It would be placed into escrow for the earliest payoff possible. That kind of defeasance costs money, and the current estimate of the hospital CFO is that amount would be about $2.8 million, the cost of defeasing the $18 million debt. $5 million of the proceeds would be used to fund a supplemental retirement program for the former employees of Wiener Memorial Medical Center who would go under the aegis of Avera Health on closing. The purpose of that $5 million is to create a fund out of which the retirement plan that Avera Health gives the employees is amplified to get them in the vicinity of what they would have gotten had they remained municipal employees and participated in the PERA structure. After those three payments are taken care of, the $18 million in debt, the $2 million plus change for defeasance of the debt, defeasance costs, and the $5 million, there'd be approximately $12 million left. $2 million would be allocated to the city for expenditure on public purposes to be determined by the city in its own discretion. The balance, which would be approximately $10 million, would be conveyed to a restructured Wiener Memorial Medical Center Foundation. Of that approximately $10 million, the medical center would be eligible for grants of up to $8.5 million to support a surgery remodeling project and to support oncology program development. Another $1.5 million would be available both to what would then be called Avera Marshall and to other qualifying organizations in the community for health and health promotion needs. Now, if the amount that is left after payment after the defeasance of the debt, after payment of the defeasance costs, and after the $5 million contribution to the trust for employee retirement purposes, and the $2 million that the city would use for public purposes, if that doesn't amount to $10 million, the amounts for those three categories, surgery center, oncology center, oncology program and development, and health and health promotion, would be adjusted first by adjusting the amount that would be available to the oncology program. Now, there's a little bit of a summary on the bottom of page 11 with respect to the use of the proceeds. I think it is simply an arithmetic description of what I've just gone through orally. I'm not going to repeat it unless there are questions. Now, the Wiener Memorial Medical Center Foundation would be restructured under this proposal. It would have its board directly appointed by Avera Marshall. For those funds that would be contributed by the city to the foundation on closing, a special committee would be established to oversee the use and distribution of those funds. Other funds that are raised subsequently to the closing would be used as appropriate at the direction of the full foundation board. But because this approximately $10 million is coming out of the city's sales proceeds, the negotiators on behalf of the hospital and the city, with Avera's consent, negotiated this special committee structure, which would essentially create a mini board for the oversight of the use and distribution of those funds. It would be comprised of 2 people appointed by the city, 2 people appointed by Avera Marshall, or the foundation board, and a 5th person selected by those 4. The special committee would be bound by the restrictions placed upon the gift that the city would make under this proposal to the foundation. The board may not overrule the committee. After 10 years, the committee would be disbanded, but the restrictions that the city placed on the gifts, if it had not been fully expended, would continue. Now, a fair amount of negotiation was undertaken with respect to the promises that Avera Health would be making to the community of Marshall. And those are outlined on pages 13 and following of the PowerPoint. I'm going to hit the most important ones in my summary, and then move on to talking about some adjustments to the transactional documents based upon the Council's conversation at the last meeting at which I attended, move on to questions that the Council might have at that point. The current Avera Marshall Board will be continued. The bylaws that will be adopted reflect those that other Avera regional centers have. The Avera Health will not, as a general matter, close the hospital or the nursing home unless market conditions drive it to that particular point. Even if market conditions suggest that the hospital or nursing home ought to close, Avera Health is undertaking to promise that the hospital will not close even if it's losing a lot of money for a period of 10 years, a nursing home for a period of 5 years. Should there be a proposal to close the hospital, nursing home, or a line of business that's not a part of the hospital, nursing home, and just by way of example, I'll pick home health as something that is an important part of the medical center's operations, but is not necessarily a part of the hospital or a part of the nursing home. The city would have a right to reacquire the closed business or the proposed to be sold business. During the first 10 years of the period after closing on this transaction, should you approve it, the city would have a right to reacquire the operation, whether it's the hospital, nursing home, or more likely the nursing home, or a line of business outside the hospital or a nursing home for 50% of its appraised value. One of the things that I'll speak about in a minute is a concern expressed by some council members at the last meeting that the reacquired facility would lack liquidity. It would lack cash flow, it would lack working capital, and we are trying to address that by requiring 6 months worth of payroll as a part of the cash transfer back to the city. The hospital could not be relocated outside the city unless that would be permitted by law. The hospital would have to continue to serve the citizens of the city and its surrounding communities without discrimination. It would have to continue to have a charity care program which is consistent with industry norms. Avera would promise to match the foundation contribution up to $1.5 million towards the surgery remodeling project. The hospital building would remain named the Lewis Weiner Memorial Hospital. Avera Marshall would promise to pay payments in lieu of property taxes at the rate of $100,000 per year through 2010, and Avera Marshall would continue to engage in community collaboration in support of the public health. Now, one of the things that the documents do is build a little bit of a fence around the assets of the transferred operations. One of the questions that we had was, would money be leaving the community? And Avera has indicated, and it is documented in the membership transfer agreement, which the Council has, that no dividends or distributions would be permitted for a period of 10 years unless it's a part of an overall strategy on parity with the other Avera hospital holdings. The local hospital here, the medical center, would not become a part of an Avera obligated group without the local board's approval. An obligated group is simply a collection of related companies which become jointly and severally liable for enterprise-wide debt. The virtue of an obligated group is it gets everybody in the obligated group cheaper debt because there's greater economic power there. But that would still have to be passed on favorably by the local board. Management services would be provided to the local operation here on terms no less favorable than the terms provided to the other Avera regional operations. The City Council would receive reports on the financial status of the operation and on programmatic developments at least twice a year, and there would be a series of other promises made that I think time doesn't permit us to go into. Now, one of the questions that will come up is what are the next steps should you approve this transaction? We would not just be waiting until November 1st comes and goes. There would have to be some things done between now and closing. One of the things that needs to be done is the passage of legislation which creates an enhanced benefit for employees of the facility after the facility becomes privatized. The state law needs to be amended to add the name of this operation to the list of facilities that have already gone through this type of a change. The bond debt would need to be defeased. An environmental assessment would need to be conducted by Avera Health on the real estate, and Avera Health will have to acquire the financing. If Avera Health fails to acquire financing, then there's a $250,000, such that the transaction will not close. There's a $250,000 breakup fee that would be payable to the city in partial defrayment of the costs that have been undertaken in an effort to bring this transaction forward. On the employee front, I think that council members are aware that there have been employee forums both during the discussion of this potential transaction and subsequently to an understanding at the negotiating committee level at least that the transaction was one that you ought to consider favorably for approval. There will be no workforce reduction planned as a result of this sale. The hire dates of the employees of our facility will be used as the hire dates for Avera Health for purposes of service credit and the like. The paid time off balances that employees have will continue. Salary and differentials will continue to be driven by market conditions in this labor market and not other labor markets. And benefits will be more or less a blend of the current Avera Marshall Wiener Memorial Medical Center benefits and those that are available through Avera Health. The employees have been apprised of this in employee meetings, it's my understanding. We've already talked, I think, briefly when we were talking about the distribution and use of proceeds from the transaction, about the $5 million that would be proposed to be put into a special trust for purpose of funding the enhanced retiree benefit. To the extent that any funds would not be used out of that $5 million after the passage of time, I believe the funds come back to the city. So any excess funds would come back to the city, but that would not be known for some years. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, that's the summary of the transaction. I can stop for questions, or I can go into the 2 or 3 changes that I think are important for you to know in the 2 transactional documents.
Please do go into that.
The first document that I'm looking at is the membership transfer agreement. It's the big fat one. And there are a number of minor, I would say, clerical or correcting changes in that document, but there are 2 changes that I want to call to your attention. One of them is in section 7.1. And in the red line, that's page 12. I'm not sure what page it is in the clean version of the document. If council members will remember, this section of the membership transfer agreement, section 7.1, was essentially a placeholder when I last met with you. there was a phrase, council discussing the words that need to go in here. These words that I'm going to go through with you reflect a discussion and negotiation between attorneys for Avera Health and us. Has everyone located that language?
It begins on page 11.
It's in Article 7, Roman numeral 7, and it's Covenants of Avera Health, and it's section 7.1.
Near the front, if that helps.
Everyone got it? This particular section of this transactional document lays out the process and the logic for the reacquisition of the hospital or nursing home or other line of business should they be proposed to be closed or sold by Avera Health. Section 7.1A, Romanet 1, forgive me for the way we enumerate things, it's a lawyer thing, says basically that the city has the right to reacquire any of these operations if they are proposed to be closed voluntarily by Avera Health or sold by Avera Health to a third party. An option is created for the city to reacquire the operation in question. The Romanet 2, which is the second paragraph here, says that Avera Health must give the city 4 months advance notice of any intention to close or sell the hospital, the nursing home, or other line of business. And for 90 days after that 4 months notice, Avera Health will have an option, the city of Marshall will have an option to purchase the assets by providing that notice back to Avera Health. Now, the promise that is in the contract is that the assets will be generally purchased at their appraised fair market value. However, for the first 10 years, it would be 50% of the appraised fair market value. And Romanet 3 here describes a process for selecting appraisers. The parties should probably find it easy, should this eventuality come to pass, to identify an appropriate appraiser, but there's a dispute resolution mechanism ending up in Lyon County Court, the District Court for Lyon County, if in fact the parties can't come to agreement on the appraiser. After the purchase price is determined, the city would have 45 days to proceed with the reacquisition. And during that first 10-year period, the city would have the right to insist, unless it decided not to, that as a part of the value that would come over with the hospital or the nursing home or the other line of business, 6 months' worth of payroll costs in the form of cash would come over, providing the city with liquidity for operation. This was something that was called out to our attention at the last council meeting and something that we tried to address here. That's basically the summary of that section. A lot of words in that section, but that's basically the summary of it. The second change I want to call to your attention is at the end of section 9.2 of the membership transfer agreement. Remember that the transaction can't close any sooner than November 11th. I'm sorry, November 1st, because of the inability to defease the debt, all the debt prior to that point in time. One of the things that's customary in transactions of any type is to have a drop dead date by which, if all the conditions that are necessary to happen before closing do not occur, the deal craters. And the drop dead date that we've identified by mutual agreement within the negotiating committee is March 1st, 2010. So there would be a period of time between November 1st and March 1st during which the transaction could close. After that point in time, the feeling was that the transaction would be in serious trouble, that it would be stale, and that it would be necessary to pull back from it. And so that's what we added. That was not in the last version of the agreement that you received. The changes to the asset transfer agreement, which is, if you recall, the agreement that conveys the real estate, the interest in the real estate that the city has to the hospital corporation, There are two that I want to call to your attention there. One of them has been made and the other has not been made, but the parties have agreed through counsel on both sides that it shall be made if in fact the council approves the transaction. If you take out that agreement, and it's a shorter agreement, and look at page 2, section 1.6, lowercase b in parenthesis. I think it's, I'm not sure it's page 2 of the clean document, but it's page 2 of the red line. This was a change requested by Marshall Municipal Utilities. This is under section 1.6, excluded assets, reserve rights, and undertakings on the asset transfer agreement. Has everyone located that?
Wait a minute.
This section relates to easements, and one of the easements that was requested by Avera Health was an opportunity to put the brand of the hospital on the water tower, which I believe is technically the property of Marshall Municipal Utilities, Dennis, if I'm not mistaken. And the utility managers called to our attention that this section was ambiguous as to whose expense the painting would be to put the brand of the facility on the water tower, and the request from the utility was that be at the hospital's or medical center's expense and not at the utility's expense. So that's one change that was requested by the utility. The second change we have not made, but the negotiators have agreed, and this is in section 5.2 of the agreement, which has to do with closing costs and prorations. And it's 5.2C, the last sentence. Now, this change has not yet been made, but it's a change that we would recommend to you should you approve the transaction tonight. The last sentence of that section says that seller, meaning the city of Marshall, shall pay all sales tax imposed upon the sale of the personal property, if any. Now, remember that this transaction is fundamentally a real estate transaction, and because it is somewhat ambiguous as to whether the city has title to some of the personal property that's being used by the hospital, there's a kind of a quitclaim conveyance of the city's interest in that property as a part of this real estate transaction. We don't think that there'll be any personal property taxes levied on this transaction, but the buyer agrees that in view of the totality of the circumstances, the seller shouldn't pay any sales tax if in fact it's levied. And so we would recommend that the word seller in that sentence be changed to the word buyer. Those are the changes to the documents that I think are material since we last reviewed them. There are a bunch of typos that were corrected and headings that were corrected. But with that, we can stand for any questions that the council members may have of us.
Dennis, do you have anything to add as legal counsel for, Dan's acting as legal counsel for the negotiating team, Dennis is procedurally for the council?
Not as it addresses these two documents. Procedurally, where we are at, council must consent to the hospital's recommendation. So, I mean, we'll get to that later on this evening. But procedurally, I think we're okay.
Any questions at this time for Dan?
I guess I got a question on the proposal for disbursement of the funds. There's a $7 million given out to oncology purpose. What is an oncology purpose? Is that a center that we're going to have that the money will be spent on? Or is that any purpose that that board would feel purposeful to give to an oncology reason? I mean, is it set aside directly for a center? And if it's directly set aside for a center, have we done enough research to know that we're gonna have a center and need a center and build a center? Or if that $7 million is set aside, is that be able to be shifted and given to some other oncology purpose besides the center?
Did everyone hear the question?
Yes.
I can answer the question from a document perspective, but I think Mary Martins may have to answer it from a clinical and programmatic perspective. The document, I believe, says that the dollars are to be expended on oncology programming and capital. And that is the extent of the description. It's a creation of a category within which the money could be spent. I would have to defer to Mary and others to say anything more about what's possible there.
Charlie, we have done a considerable amount of work on the cancer project that dates back actually to a discussion that our board had when they were going through a due diligence process and really taking a look at that point, 2 systems back in 2003 that were interested in a management or other relationship with the medical center at that time. At that time, they had specifically asked about new service development, and Avera Health specifically mentioned 2 particular areas that they felt the medical center and the governing board should focus on. One was behavioral health, and as you know, we opened a behavioral health inpatient center in July of 2007. And the other was in oncology, specifically creating access to radiation therapy in the community and for the region. Initially in late 2005, there was a business plan that was created that had some exhaustive modeling of actual patients that have experienced care, and we did a number of, a large number of research into technology as well as cancer incidence and the like. The board felt at that point that they were not poised to move forward with the cancer project at that time, although the feasibility and the need was clearly demonstrated in that project. So the board wanted to focus on building the surgery program at that time and continue to focus on that, but have seen a considerable increase in that service line. So the board asked for us to revisit that early in 2008, which the business plan was brought forward at that time to current information. And again, the cancer incidence continues to support a radiation therapy or cancer center specifically type of project. It does require that a facility is built to accommodate the linear accelerator, which is the equipment that delivers the radiation therapy. We understand that the community has more questions and that we have done some initial research into a capital campaign and other types of funding mechanisms, as it would require some work and support within the community to do that. So we understand that we have additional work to do, but again, the board continues to move towards that project. Is that?
Well, it kind of clears it up a little bit. I still want to go with, so the total you'd be looking for is not 7 million. The total you're looking for is a lot more than that
That's correct.
to open up a center.
Sharon, I
And
think
the 7 million would be the start. But at some point, if we decide not to have a center here, then what happens to those funds?
To the extent that that funds that were designated for use in oncology programming and capital would be unexpended, the medical facility could request the special committee for permission to use the money on other health programs. But the special committee, composed of 2 people appointed by the city, 2 people appointed by Avera Marshall, and a 5th person appointed by that group before, would have to make a decision as to whether or not that was an appropriate use.
So it would be the same elected board that's going to oversee that distribution of all that $10 million. That's the same board, or is this a different board you're talking about?
It's the same special committee,
Same
yes.
special
Same
committee would
special-
make a decision whether or not they want to use it for a different purpose other than building a center. But
That's-
would it still be used for an oncology purpose?
Could be used for an oncology purpose that didn't involve building a center. It could be used, if unexpended, on other healthcare purposes if requested by what would then be Avera Marshall and agreed with by this special committee.
Okay?
Thank you. Other questions at this time? Not before we open it up to any other public comment. Dan, did you have anything more you wanted to say?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn to the chair of the board for any comments you may have, as well as any other board member.
Thank you. I'll move the mic down, being of average height. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and we especially appreciate the confidence that the City Council showed when we had an initial meeting, when you asked us to go through the process of trying to do an evaluation to look at the possibility of privatization. I then had the opportunity to try to put together a subgroup of the board for that purpose. And Art Olson, who has been on this board longer than anyone, who's very familiar with the community, very familiar with the hospital and its role and its purpose, I felt would make an excellent chair of that committee. Roger Madison, who has just recently, as a board member, was the newest board member, but had a strong financial background, as well as Bernadette Crunk, who was the chief financial officer for Schwantz, who has since moved to the cities. We thought that would make an excellent subgroup of the hospital board, and we appreciate the fact that from the council we had Mike Reynolds serving on that group as well. I think what we see before us this evening is a culmination of a great deal of work. A lot of detail has gone into this. We appreciate the fact, and I'll take the liberty of speaking for the board, that the trust you've placed in us as a board reporting to the City Council, that we have done the best we can to be good stewards of our responsibility in that process. And I want you to know that the documents you see before you, as we've reviewed them as a hospital board and asked probing questions of the committee, the subcommittee that worked on this, want you to know that we are satisfied that we are delivering to you a document which represents what we intended to do, and that was to further medical care in this community. I've always been disturbed by the idea of calling this selling the hospital, because selling the hospital, and we have heard this in some of the public forums, we get into discussions about selling it to the highest bidder. Now, if I can use the analogy we used about a year and a half ago, when you sell your house, you want to try to get as much money for that house as you possibly can, because you're going to move, and you leave the people behind who have bought the house. We follow that analogy through the sale of the hospital. We're not moving. We're going to live with the people who bought it, and as well, the neighborhood is concerned about what happens to that hospital after we proceed with the sale. So the analogy of trying to sell to the highest bidder, which oftentimes can be a win-lose proposition, we, in the process of this, have tried to deliver to you what we consider as a hospital board, after having been involved with the hospital for a number of years, understanding its operations, understanding what's confronting us. We really feel that this transfer of title, if we can call it that, enables us to continue to grow. We've seen the results of that. Now, keep in mind, this isn't just a negotiation that we started a year ago trying to do this. The hospital has been working in conjunction with Avera Health for over 4 years. So we know how they think, how they work, how they reason, the logic they approach things with. I've had the opportunity of talking with several board members from other regional Avera Health facilities, because I was concerned about the level of autonomy that the boards operate with. And I can assure the City Council, on behalf of the work that we have done, that that is one of the reasons why we feel so strongly about this, is that we will continue to operate with virtual autonomy. Avera Health looks to the local boards, local regional boards, to maintain the health care in this region. This will permit us to be able to grow that and to develop it. So I just wanted to assure the city council that the stewardship that you've placed in our trust as the governing board for the hospital, I think we've made good decisions, intelligent decisions. We have spent the time and the hours, and especially the subcommittee that negotiated this, that although this is a large, voluminous document that you're looking at, in total, what it does is establishes the future of healthcare in the city of Marshall and the surrounding area. It gives us the opportunity to grow a regional healthcare facility. The other issue, please remember that you cannot write a document that is so airtight that if you don't trust the partnership that you're going into, the contractual arrangement, there's no contract that can be written tight enough to give you that assurance. But we do it on the basis of trust that's been established over the period of time we've been working with them. And as the chair of the board, I would encourage the city council to have faith in our abilities to look at this thing and have faith in the trust that we have established and that we are familiar with. And our goal and our objective as a hospital governing board has been to try to carry us forward with the best health care possible available in this market. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I want to, at this time, recognize any other, the other board members who are here. We've already heard from Art Olson and Dr. Mike Rich. Roger Madison, who's a member of the negotiating team, is also a board member. Dr. Steve Meister on my left, your right, is a member of the board, as well as Cliff Carmody and Bill Cole over on the side there. So thank you all as board members. Additional comments? Roger, you want to make comments?
My comments are tied to the outcomes for the stakeholders that are left after this transaction, the outcomes of this transaction to the stakeholders involved. We kind of identified 5 groups. One is the citizens of the area who use this hospital. One is the employees of the hospital itself. Another is the city council and its representation of the city as a whole. Another is the hospital board. And then Avera Health of Sioux Falls as the other stakeholder. Where we're at as the transaction unfolds is that Avera Health is a willing party, as they came to the table 5 years ago to be involved with us, interested in purchasing this facility, and while I cannot speak for them, I know that we have a deal and that they have agreed that this is an appropriate deal, so it's a transaction that they are comfortable with in where we're at today, the proposal that's presented. The group that represents the hospital board, as just identified, is very much an advocate of this transaction. Listening to our board as we discuss it, we feel pretty strongly that today we have a hospital that is managed by Avera. Tomorrow, after this transaction closes, we have a hospital that is managed by Avera. The ownership is the piece that changes. The debate could be on which is the better owner of the hospital in this community, but certainly the hospital board is recommending this proposal because they believe Avera Marshall is the better owner for the long term for this hospital. The employees have been treated as fairly as we can in this transaction. We've taken direction from the city council in a number of areas, and this one in particular, and by all accounts, the employees have indicated this is exactly what they were hoping for. The letters of support and the meetings and discussion with them have been very positive. And lastly, the citizens of the community have a hospital that should continue to treat their needs as it has in the past. The question that is on the table in some people's minds comes down to the city council representing the city itself, whether the financial transaction is appropriate. There is debate about how much benefit financially there is to the city itself. And those numbers are very different depending on what individual you talk to. But again, in representing all those and looking at a transaction in which there always will be some compromise through negotiations, the hospital board certainly recommends this because we believe it is a fair transaction even to all parties, including the financial aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. As we continue on with public input. I'm just going to go from side to side, so keeping this moving, if whoever is interested in speaking next would want to come forward, and then someone else can come there, and I'm going to go to Dr. Meister on this side next, if that's what, maybe you're just looking for a place to stand, but if you were intending okay.
I was looking for a place to stand, but now that you laid it out, I'm Cliff Carmody. I'm on the hospital board, and just a couple comments. I want to thank the mayor and the council for inviting us here tonight, and I also want to ask for your forgiveness. I'm going to sneak out of here. I've got a daughter who plays basketball, and it's parents' night over there, and as much as Dennis would like to be there, I'm going to get over there. So I want to speak just for a few minutes on the issue of due diligence and RFP or the bidding part of some of this. I think that's been a question that some folks have raised. Why wasn't there a request for proposal? Why wasn't there a bid? Why didn't we have an auction or something of that nature? And I've thought about that, and we've actually had this discussion prior to this evening. And actually, from my perspective, I think we did have an RFP process, if you will. We did do our due diligence. It just happened a number of years ago. In fact, when we first went out looking for a partner, when the mayor encouraged the hospital board at the time and challenged the hospital board to become a regional facility, we believed that in order to make that happen, we needed a partner. And we went out looking for a partner. We talked to, at that time, Sanford, Sioux Valley. We talked to Avera. We even invited Mayo to talk to us. They declined that opportunity, and so we didn't talk to them. We spent numerous hours talking with Avera Health and the Sanford system in coming to an agreement. In fact, we had discussions as a board about what the agreement might look like after we chose a partner. And I think it's important to point out that during the course of those conversations, it wasn't a management agreement right away. In fact, there was a continuum of relationships that we talked about, everywhere from a management agreement to a lease to a purchase. We decided at that time, and as after we chose Avera as our partner, we decided at that time that a management agreement made the most sense. And I think the reason, if I don't want to put words in Randy Serene's mouth, but he was on the board at that time, and Randy said, you know, one of the things when you put a deal together you ought to consider, and folks don't always consider, is the exit strategy. How do you get out of a bad deal? And so we looked at the management agreement as a way for us to test the waters to see how this might work. It was new for the hospital board. I think it was new for the city at that time. And Avera had, obviously, some experience with it, but we felt that we did do our due diligence. We have done our due diligence, and frankly, from my perspective, I think this is a natural place where we ought to be. We started with the management agreement. It's worked very well. The hospital board has had the advantage of learning how these guys operate. We've had the advantage of working closely with them from a governance standpoint. Our staff at the hospital have had the advantage of working with the staff through the Avera system. And we feel very comfortable with the due diligence that has been done. We feel very comfortable with the work that's been done to get us to where we are tonight. And hopefully, through the process of the negotiations, we've brought you along in that. But I will apologize if we haven't done enough of that. But we feel very strongly about this agreement. We feel very strongly about the due diligence that we've done. With that, I don't sneak out the door very easily, but I'm going to slide out the door, and thank you again for your time tonight.
Thank you, Cliff.
Again, I'm Dr. Meister, also a board member. I'm going to speak to the council as far as the relationship that we've had from a business standpoint. I have the unique opportunity amongst all the board members to also be a physician. So I get to deal with the Avera Physician Network. I can also say that as an independent physician, not employed by Avera, I can refer to anybody I want. That includes Mayo, University of Minnesota, Sanford, Sioux Valley, and any place else that a patient may desire to go to, or I may feel that they may get the best care. Without exception, I have had nothing but good experiences with Avera. Case in point, if I send somebody to Avera, with rare exception, and usually that's a technological glitch, I will get an updated note on that patient's progress every single day. I never have any problems contacting any physician at the Avera system and saying, I have a patient I'd really like to discuss with you and potentially have you accept and transfer. Never any problem. Can I say that about any place else? No.
With regards to follow-up, if I send somebody to the cities or to Mayo, the follow-up will be little, if any, especially in the cities. If I send somebody to the University of Minnesota, I get a quick note saying that your patient was admitted, and that's it. The next time I hear from them is when the patient comes back to me and says, well, did you get what they did to me at the university? Nope, you're going to have to tell me. About 3 months later, I might get the write-up. Mayo's a little bit better, but delays it by about a month. As far as the other Sioux Falls Hospital, Sanford, I don't get any follow-up from there. I have had problems with patients being accepted there, not wanting to take them. It's not as bad as further east, but it's not as easy as Avera. I know a lot of the Avera doctors, therefore, personally, and have developed personal relationships, so it's almost like a team approach because I'm dealing with somebody that I feel comfortable with. I know their knowledge, I know their capabilities, I know their limitations, and so when they recommend a treatment or if they recommend going on and above from their capabilities, I'm comfortable with that. So from that standpoint, I'm very, very comfortable. Another thing that I'd like to mention is the staff. Again, our nurses are some of the best that I've ever worked with. I know them all. They're all very capable. The way that we as a board have brokered and negotiated with Avera on the deal, and more importantly, the willingness of Avera to accept that term as part of the negotiations in supporting the retirement and supporting our employees, I feel that that's above and beyond. In the current market, as a physician, I'm scared. Frankly, I'm scared. Mary can go further as to what the governor may or may not do with health care. The president can change everything, everything with the stroke of a pen. And I would rather be supported and owned and managed as a hospital by somebody whose sole business is health care as opposed to a municipality that, doesn't really have the experience with Medicare, the knowledge of health care rules, regulations, and everything else that goes along with it, and payment structures. And therefore, I think that we are really doing the best decision, making the best decision to go forward with providing health care permanently in Marshall. So thank you.
I'll just take a minute to tag on a little bit of what Dr. Meister was talking about in terms of staff. One of the things I heard from you on the 14th was to help you understand the feedback from staff regarding the proposal that includes the dollars set aside for the para true-up. And in general, I want to tell you that I've gotten extraordinarily positive feedback, affirmation and acknowledgement of the city's consideration of that. And I know we have spent countless hours talking about that. We have heard positive feedback from both of our bargaining units, AFSCME and M&A. And as you can suspect, a number of the staff are here this evening. And perhaps in lieu of a lot of additional staff comment, I'll share with you just a little bit of feedback that I've gotten. This is a person who writes, I want to personally thank everyone who has spent hours on this negotiation and know that I appreciate everything very much. It seems like you have all gone above and beyond, and I am grateful. It sounds as if our para-retirement is intact and will flow seamlessly. Again, thank you. From another person who actually I happened to hire some years ago, there's one particular thought that continues to come to mind for me each time we have employee forums. The day you interviewed me for my position, one of the first things you said was, I have to tell you there will be some call time included in this position. Never once did you say, you will always have para, and there will never be any changes here. It is unrealistic to believe that change will never occur, and having been employed at a business that was accustomed to making these changes at the corporate level without any input from their employees, this process has been a welcome change. Rather than come in and make an after-the-fact announcement, administration, the board, and council have managed to keep everyone up to speed. In these unstable economic times, it's nice to know there is still an employer out there that thinks of their employee first. I must be mellowing in my old age, but it's a welcome change to be a valued employee and appreciated. Just a couple more. First, I would like to thank all of the boards and administration for their concern for the employees. I'm very happy to say that I work for such a wonderful hospital. I went away from the forums thinking, I cannot believe how much the city is willing to give back to the employees and the hospital after selling. Please tell the boards that I am very thankful for all they have done to help the employees understand the process as well as the financial considerations for the staff. And one final. I want to personally thank you and the rest of the negotiating team for your hard work and dedication to the facilities and employees. It's obvious that a tremendous amount of work and effort was expended to reach the point that we are at. The para shortfall piece is very, very much appreciated, and as you say, not something that is very common or even considered in the practice of business today. Thank you for keeping the employees of this facility in mind throughout this process. So again, feedback to your questions to me on the 14th regarding staff. So thank you.
Mary?
I will need to move the microphone. Good evening. My name is Jean Reed. I'm an Avera employee and have served as a member of the negotiating team. First off, I would like to read a statement to you from John Porter, who is president and CEO of Avera Health. I know council members, you had met Mr. Porter, as he's also met many people in the community. And so if I may, he sends to you warmest greetings to all gathered in Marshall this evening for the City Council meeting. I regret that I cannot join you because of a long-scheduled business event, the date of which could not be changed. Please accept my sincere apology along with Avera's gratitude to the Avera Marshall Board, the negotiating team, the City Council, and the community of Marshall for their remarkable focus on advancing the quality and scope of health care in the region. Those of us at Avera who have been working with you through this process frequently note our appreciation for the dedication, diligence, and integrity of all involved. Of note, this is not something that just began last fall. Rather, this process began 5 years ago when the Wiener Memorial Hospital and Avera Health recognized in each other a shared vision to provide local access to high-quality rural health care and to grow clinical services. Over the past years, we have accomplished much. Job growth in the community, a broadened scope of services, and a greater number of physicians who either live in the community of Marshall or provide outreach services here. Avera's nonprofit partner philosophy, which has characterized the organization throughout its more than 100-year history, is to keep healthcare local and to implement measures to keep rural communities viable and vibrant, places in which to live and to work. Strong local healthcare and thriving rural communities go hand in hand. That is why our mission states that we strive to make a positive impact on the lives and health of the persons and the communities. In that spirit, I thank all of you for your foresight and willingness to consider dedication of the funds associated with this transaction to remain with Avera Marshall in order to advance the vision of a regional medical center, provide for growth in healthcare services, improve accessibility to quality healthcare close to home for the people of Marshall and the surrounding communities. Avera shares your vision, dedication, and energy for quality healthcare in Marshall. Your vision for a regional medical center, and your mission to positively impact the lives and health of persons in the community. On this, I ask for a positive vote that will shape the future healthcare of the community of Marshall, and to strengthen and to deepen Avera's relationship with this unique and progressive community. I look forward to joining you excuse me, again soon. John Porter. In addition to Mr. Porter's comments, I would like to make a few on behalf of the Avera negotiating team. If you go back to when we started this process and the two negotiating teams came together, the Avera Marshall negotiating team put forward 3 non-negotiables and asked that Avera spend time thinking about those, and said if we're not in a position to really address those head on, that there would be really no reason for us to move forward. Those non-negotiables included our willingness to purchase the full continuum, that we would not simply take a look at ventures that you had and kind of cherry pick only those things that if you were, could be profitable over the long term, but rather that we would take the full continuum and meet the needs of all. Second was that we would work together with them to ensure that employees were treated fairly, that no employees would lose their job as a result of this sale. And I can tell you that that is a part of our belief. It's a part of our fabric. And so, again, a goal that we mutually shared. And the third was that we would continue to work to develop Avera Marshall as a regional medical center so that the citizens of the community of Marshall and the surrounding communities would continue to have access to ongoing quality health care. Both negotiating teams often tested specific deal points that we were talking about against these three non-negotiables. In closing, I'd like to say that Avera fully supports the transaction before you. We appreciate the opportunity to have gone through this process, and we look forward to continuing to work together to grow Avera Marshall and the community of Marshall. Thank you.
Mike?
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Mike Dulas, 105 F Street for the record. Turns out I was born at Wiener Memorial Medical Center. Don't hold that against them, but I'm a businessman in Marshall. I have 4 businesses. I have 12 employees. I'm also chairman of the board of directors of the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, and that's what brings me here today. Last week, I sent you all a letter representing our position as a Chamber of Commerce. As a board, last week, all 16 members voted unanimously to pass a resolution of support, which I'd like to read for the record. And it states, resolution of support, whereas the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors represents its business members in the Marshall area, and whereas our mission is to be recognized as a proactive, focused, influential leader in regional business center in Southwest Minnesota, and whereas it is in the best interest of our business community to have available the highest achievable quality health care, and whereas the City of Marshall Hospital Board has done its due diligence in working with consultants to evaluate the conditions of sale, has determined the best course of action, is recommending the sale of the city-owned hospital to Avera Health. Be it now resolved, the City of Marshall, represented by the City Council, has the full support and endorsement of the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and our 379 members, and we encourage the Marshall City Council to approve this sale as recommended by the Hospital Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Pat?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I appear tonight encouraging you to go ahead with the sale. I think it's the best thing for the people in Marshall. I don't think the terms are the best, and they should be changed and can be changed. I think Avera has done a good job. I think they will continue to do a good job. I don't think we should auction off the hospital or look for a higher bid or anything else. I think that depending on how you want to look at the terms, I'm not sure all of the figures are here. I think the appraisal is somewhere around $62 million, of which I think the city's getting $2 million. So what we're really doing is selling a $62 million asset for $2 million. And we're turning around and putting $1.5 million into a surgery suite, which, if we use the appraisal, that's got to increase the value of that by $1.5 million. I don't see in the figures that the booklet and what up here, there's a statement and transaction details that talks about Avera asked that restricted assets on the balance sheet remain with Avera. I don't know if that's the 5.6 million. So if it is, we have to actually readjust those, but those figures that figure didn't show up anywhere. I think specifically if I look at what has been said and what is proposed, the $5 million for the PERA, I'm not sure, because it wasn't around when any of these people were hired, if they were guaranteed that as long as they worked at the hospital, they would get PERA or not. And I'm not sure if they weren't guaranteed, then why it's happening. We're in a situation today, I think not only nationwide, but here locally, where people are losing their jobs, where employers are cutting back the contributions they're making to private employees' 401k plans, that to continue this is just wrong. There's not probably a private employer in the city of Marshall that can match PERA. They're always competing with the city, the government, for retirement funds, for benefits, for health care, for whatever. I just think that that's wrong. The second thing about this is the $7 million for oncology, the $1.5 million for promotion of health, and the $1.5 million for the surgery suite, we could keep that money. There's no reason that the city couldn't keep that. And if the city wants to, or the voters want to, come to the city and say, look, you can use that money for public purposes, which includes health care, then we could give it as the voters want you to. But here 2 weeks ago, about these figures first came out, and all of a sudden now you're asked to approve them when nobody's even had a chance to look at them, to debate it, do anything about it. I don't know what the need is that Mary talks about as far as the oncology. I haven't seen the study. I don't know what it is. For the promotion, why do these funds have to be controlled by Avera? Why aren't they retained by the city? Why doesn't the $10 million that goes there, the $15 million for PERA, the $2 million cash come to the city, and then the city decide as time goes on how to spend those dollars? If it's for health care, it's for health care, if that's what it's determined. But somewhere, before we got here, everybody determined how it's going to be spent. Something for oncology, something for promotion, whatever those promotion things are. So I absolutely believe that we should sell the hospital. I'm not opposed to it, and I think the only person that we should sell it to is Avera. I just think that, and I don't think we should change the price, even though there's somewhere, as I say, there's at least a 50% discount on what the appraised value is, and that's fine. They're a nonprofit corporation. They will do great for this community and for the health of this community. But I just think the terms aren't fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Don?
Mayor, Bob, and council members. My name is Don Lawaji. I farm 5 miles northeast of Marshall. And certainly my concern is, as somebody in the community around Marshall, the importance of health services in Marshall. And as you're probably aware, my family, my dad and mother, my family, Carol and us, have used the hospital for many years. In fact, it's about 50 years. And it is important to us, the services we can get and what we can have for the future, and certainly believe that going forward with Avera is going to be very helpful in maybe bringing more doctors and adding the newer, latest techniques to the service and improving Marshall. Not that there's anything wrong with our Marshall Hospital. I think it's great, but I think it's going towards the future. And I'd like to thank the city for providing us with the health care services for over 50 years. They have done an excellent job. I would also like to applaud them for having the vision to address the health care needs of the future and look at a potential sale to the Avera system. Change is inevitable. We want to make sure we have a great medical center here and for years to come. I thank you, the City Council and the Avera Marshall Board, for being proactive in making decisions that will help us achieve our goal of being the medical center of choice in our region. In 1994, I was asked if I'd be willing to serve on the foundation board to represent maybe the rural community, as the foundation needed to probably raise funds to do some things that probably were short of funds to new projects for the hospital. Of course, for me, it was quite an education because what I found or heard about the hospital in a local coffee shop wasn't necessarily the truth, as I realized there was a lot of things that probably there was some shortage of money, that by having funds, raising dollars, we could add more and help the hospital out to do a better job for the medical services. And of course, you're probably aware in the last few years we've worked with Run with the Wind. We've had some place settings. We've had the golf outing. We've had some capital campaigns to try to support the hospital. Of that, the foundation has been able to provide funds that have helped the ICU care unit, which, as you're aware, if there's a patient in the ICU unit, they can observe him from Avera in Sioux Falls, and if there's a particular problem that we're not knowledgeable in Marshall, they're able to help us and consult with us. We've also purchased some televisions for all the rooms, and you may say, well, you don't need a television. Well, the biggest complaint we had at the hospital was the televisions. They didn't know how to turn them off, they couldn't shut them off, or they didn't get where they wanted to go. Well, we hear a lot of thanks and gratitude for that. We've offered other amenities for the nursing home and purchased many pieces of equipment for the wellness and rehabilitation programs, just to name a few of what we've done. As we go forward with Avera, the foundation will be able to grow and offer more opportunities for Avera Marshall. For me, it is exciting to see that $10 million designated for the restructuring of the foundation. Of that, as has been pointed out, 1.5 could be used for surgery expansion project, another $7 million towards an eventual oncology service if we go in that direction in capital, and 1.5 million designated for health-related community projects. We as a foundation board appreciate this opportunity and what it could mean to the medical service and health care of our region. If you realize, if we go forward with the cancer project or any other project, to have some dollars to start out with as we go trying to raise more money, it's a big help and a big incentive, a big push. So it's very appreciated if we go in that direction. And lastly, I'd like to say I appreciate being able to make these comments tonight. On behalf of the Foundation Board, as was stated in a recent letter to the editor, we do support this proposal and would look forward to working with the Avera system. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Steve Strouts. I'm a local business owner. I'm a former board member of the hospital from 95 to 2000. Excuse me. Presently, I'm president of the Marshall Industries Foundation and chair of the Chamber's Transportation Committee. I would focus my comments on the fact that this hospital has functioned and functioned very well for a long number of years and has operated with their local governing board, which is appointed by the council and I believe has been that way since the 1950s. In the 5 years that I was on that board, we talked a number of things. This isn't the first time that affiliation or integration has been talked about. We talked about it back in the mid-90s. Our board at that time made the decision that time wasn't right. We felt that we could function more effectively as an independent operation. I have great confidence in this board, and I think you folks must, because some of you were involved in appointing most of these people that have been on this board. And as I've said before, I don't feel that they made this decision lightly. They didn't go out and have lunch together and decide, oh, okay, let's sell the hospital tomorrow. It's been a process, a long process, a lot of painstaking hours of research. And the other thing that a lot of business people do, when you get into a complex transaction or involved in a complex business, which the healthcare industry is today, you bring in outside people that spend more concentrated time and are the experts in that. They've done that. They've consulted with the experts and have put this package together. As I've looked through and listened to a number of the presentations, I think they've definitely done their due diligence. They've done their homework, and I think that what they're proposing makes all kinds of sense. At the same time, I think we also, you as the city, or as the council, and we as the city have to realize that our city has not had to fiscally support our hospital. We have not put revenues or tax revenues in. It's all come from patient revenues. The bonds that have been done were revenue bonds that were driven by patient services. So to put this money back into healthcare, some of the cash that's been talked about makes all kinds of sense because that's where it has come from in my mind. So I would encourage you to support this and move forward with the arrangements with Avera. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Yes.
Good evening. My name's Donna Hartfield. I'm an OBGYN at the hospital. I wanted to speak a little bit tonight about sort of why am I here. I was born in Montevideo and I was raised in Boyd. I graduated from Boyd High School. They actually did have a school back then. I went to SDSU. I have a bachelor's degree in pharmacy. I then attended USD and I have an MD degree from USD. I went to the University of Wisconsin and I was a OBGYN resident there and finished my last year as chief resident. I then went to the University of Washington, I went to Washington State and practiced there for 20 plus years. In 2004, I attended my 25-year medical school graduation party in Sioux Falls. The same year, certain important things were going on right here in Marshall. When I was in Sioux Falls at that gathering, the happiest people were the people who had stayed in the upper Midwest. Those of us who had gone to exotic locales were not as happy. The happiest people were the people who were working for or with Avera. So that was in May of 2004. This got me thinking about what to do with the rest of my life. That summer, I received a telephone call via cell phone from my nephew, who is out spraying crops in Yellow Medicine County, listening to your local radio station in the Lindner Farm News Network, and said, Marshall signed with Avera. I am an employee of the Avera Health System. I contacted Avera and said, I'd like to go to work in Marshall. And they said, who are you? So I interviewed back and forth with Avera Health System for 2 years before I arrived, because I felt that what is important in physicians is recruitment. But what about retention? What about keeping those doctors here? And I worked with Avera Health extensively over my personal contract, worked with Mr. Holman, and had a senior vice president at one of my interviews said, I'm here for just a short period of time. I want to understand why you want to come back to Marshall. Now, I had anticipated this question, so I had a picture of my great-nephews. So I said, this is why I'm coming back. This is why I'm here. This is a regional hospital. My great-nephews have been seen at this hospital. They're boys. My nephews have been seen at ACMC, have been seen at the hospital. They're boys. It fits in with farming. When we talk about a city hospital and I deliver babies, to me that's a little bit different because I do outreach courtesy of Avera to Dawson and to Appleton. So when I came, Avera Health said, okay, you know, you can go and do this outreach, but there aren't very many people in Lecoparle County. I said, that's okay, these are my people, I'm not worried about that. So when I go deliver babies now, I call Mary every now and again and say, I have a new zip code. Do you know where Corral is? It's almost all the way up to Ortonville. So the people are coming here to your city hospital. The unofficial count last year was about 477 deliveries. So is Avera Health a good partner? To me, the answer is yes. And I think the issue here is physician recruitment and retention. Myself, 2 surgeons, the psychiatrists and emergency room physicians and other people who are in the pipeline that I'm not even aware of. So I thank all of you for your due diligence. The process of going forward is obviously in your capable hands. However, is Avera the partner? To me, the answer is yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hartwell. Rick?
My name is Rick Juneman. I've been an anesthetist at Avera Marshall for 27 years. And behind me are at least, I'm looking from the back of their heads, but I see at least 12 employees who have probably 25 years or more service to Avera Marshall. Those of us who, when we first heard about the sale, were very concerned about PERA, and I'm addressing Mr. Leary's comments earlier. And some of us talked about, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to go find another PERA hospital to go finish out our career? I'm here to tell you that with the very generous offer that we have been shown on the screen, I can't promise you, but I can almost guarantee you all of us will be staying and finishing out our career. If you support that PERA thing, longevity will continue at Avera Marshall. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Rick. John?
John Glasgow, currently serve on the Utilities Commission, have served there for just about 9 years. Prior to that, 9 years on the hospital board. I have one concern in the presentation we have. It's on page 14, and it's the third item down, and it reads, hospital not to be relocated outside the city of Marshall unless permitted by law. It seems, I can't understand why it's even in there. If it's permitted by law, it's not a restriction. And if it's the intent to stay, then quite frankly, it should just read with it, unless permitted by law. Other than that, I have to say I fully support this change. It makes sense. I've heard from many people that talked about physician recruitment. Physician recruitment is, to me, the principal reason for this, as well as the expansion of services. Thank you.
And I want to have that point addressed as we conclude the public hearing. Anyone else that wishes to speak as part of this public hearing from the audience? Then, Mary or Dan, do you want to address that last question? Or
in the context of the negotiation, one of the things I was charged with was thinking about bad things that could happen that you would be mad at me about later on. And so one of the questions I asked was, what about relocation of the hospital? We thought that that would be something that the city would be concerned about. And so we elicited a promise from Avera Health not to relocate the hospital. As a matter of practicality, in Minnesota now, there's a hospital moratorium that makes it difficult to locate a hospital. But that we're not sure that that law will last forever. And I wanted to get some sort of a promise that it be located here in the community. It's that simple.
okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak as part of the public hearing? Any comments from the council as part of the public hearing?
I got a couple more questions I'd like to ask. When I was watching the tape of the meeting that you had where you disclosed the figures to the public, and there's a couple of people that have called me and asked me some questions. One of the questions was the sense of what they took away from it, that there was no one else interested in buying our hospital. And I had told them that at the hospital board's request, Avera was the only one we chose to deal with. Is that a true statement? So for the record, they can know that that's a true statement. That is a true statement.
Well, I think that, yes, I think that's been addressed, that the only party that has been negotiated with is Avera Health.
All right. And then
in this transaction, however, 4 years ago, as I believe Roger, you and Mike explained, that Sanford was also part
Yeah,
of
that was part of it, a business partnership negotiation that was going on. The other question that I have, another question I should say is, when we diffuse the bonds, you know, there's amount of payment that we're going to be paying, and we don't know what that amount is. And right now, if it's more, it's going to come out of the money that we're putting aside to the foundation and the money out of that $10 million. And if it's less, the money goes back to the hospital. I believe that's the way the thing reads. And I think we addressed that at that meeting, the last meeting we had, that, you know, we should have it both ways. Either if you're going to pay it if it's short, you get it if it's long. That was one of the issues that we had talked about then, that I don't see addressed in this, or readdressed.
You want to address that? Well, before you come up, do you have other questions you want to?
No, you can go up and ask that, answer that, that's fine.
I want to be sure I understand the question. Let me say what I think the contract says to see if it squares with your understanding of the contract. The issue is the estimated $2.815 million of costs associated with defeasing the bonds. This is an estimate that the CFO of the hospital worked up with the assistance of an outside consultant, but it is an estimate. It's considered to be a fairly strong estimate and unlikely to be exceeded, but it could be exceeded. The way the contracts read, I think, are as you've described them. If there is savings, those come back to the hospital. If they are, if there's an overrun or it's more expensive than that, then the amount of money that would be available for gift to the foundation would be reduced. And so if you look at the hospital operation standing alone, the hospital gets both the upside and the downside associated with those costs. That's what I thought in listening to council commentary was at least the interest of some council members, and perhaps I misunderstood. But the upside is the hospitals. The downside is the hospital as a potential recipient of the foundation dollars, because those would be diminished if the defeasance costs exceeded the $2.815 million.
Mike?
Yes, on page 4 of the transfer of membership agreement, that is not, what you just said is not what it says in that paragraph. 3.1B, top of page 4, it specifically says that the bond debt, the diffusion is $2 million, estimated to be $2,815,000. To the extent that the diffusion cost exceeds this amount, such excess shall also be paid out of the cash payment by the city of Marshall, not the city of Marshall, period. To the extent that it's less, the difference shall be paid by the city to Avera.
I stand corrected.
And that one's been a concern of mine. Roger and I have had at least
corrected.
2 talks about it. And I agree with Russ, it's one way or the other. I don't care whether Avera pays it or they get the benefit. Or if the city gets it,
Okay.
it's consistent.
Roger, you have a comment on this?
Roger's going to correct my standing corrected.
No, I think it is right. I read it
Actually,
differently than you.
Dan is accurate in what he said. His statement does not need any correction, because what happens is if you look further in the wording, it talks about the foundation will receive approximately $10 million. And that approximation is due to the fact that if there is excess cost, the foundation will not receive a full $10 million. If you simply take the numbers and go through the calculation, if the defeasance costs are $200,000 higher than stated, The foundation itself will get 9.8 million instead of 10 million. So it is, yes, that is the city's money. City will make the payment, but the result of it is that the cash they receive, the city receives, will be used first to pay that, and the gift to the foundation would be less.
Yeah, I understand you and I have talked about this, but then I think this paragraph should make reference to that later comment or whatever. As it's a standalone 2 sentences here, it does not say that.
What I would suggest is that what might be clarifying language that could put in is simply an illustration of how those dollars would work. Would that suffice as a reasonable addition to the document?
As long, yes, as long as it's included in the document.
My counsel for correcting.
Yeah. The man of many hats.
Other comments, questions from the council as part of the public hearing, recognizing that we will have further action that there will be discussion on?
I just, one more question that I've got. At that meeting, I'd asked at the city council meeting we have at the hospital board to bring forth the balance sheet and explain some of the balance sheet. And I guess from I wasn't there at the meeting, I was working, but I heard you handed it out at the end of the program. And that's really wasn't my intent. My intent was to have a little more accurate statement of what they are. I mean, I can come up with a lot of figures if I want to go through and add figures together of the sale of the hospital being 38 million, you know, and if we're paying $5.6 million ourselves back out of our own checkbook, well then let's call it 32 million or in that neighborhood or whatever, you know, that's, but I just want the people to know what we're selling and honestly up front what we're selling and being, you know, we talked about this from the very beginning that one of the statements that the mayor made at the time we talked about moving forward with this is if we move forward with this thing, it's going to be transparent. People are going to see what's going on. Well, that balance sheet, you know, there's $37 million worth of cash assets in that balance sheet. We're selling for $38.5 million. Does that make sense? Well, sometimes stuff doesn't make sense, and you can talk about how big this thing is and how it's hard to get everything included in it. I'm not opposed to selling the hospital to Avera. I'm not opposed to moving forward and having a deal with Avera. I guess I'm opposed to the fact that there's some of the questions like that haven't really been spelled out and laid out in public, so everybody's had a chance to look at those things and see all the aspects of the sale. And I would like if they were more clear. I would have liked if that balance sheet would have been a part of the presentation tonight even. You can put the figures any direction you want to put them, but that balance sheet still says there's $37.6 million worth of basically cash that we have right now in Avera's checking account, and when the deal gets all done, we got $2 million the city's going to get, but you can add in the $5 million the employee is going to get and the $10 million the foundation is going to get and make it 19 if you want. I mean, that's that.
There are two separate issues here. One is what the balance sheet of the hospital will look like the day after, the medical facility, the day after it's sold. The second question is what's the value of what is being sold? And as we went through slides 9 and 11, we tried to display to you the value of what's being sold. Focusing on one asset on the balance sheet of the entity that's being sold doesn't give you the real value of the entity that's being sold because the entity has liabilities on its balance sheet as well. We were informed by our appraiser that unless Avera Health made any special promises, if we were to sell this to a for-profit organization, that the range of value was somewhere between $60 and $66 million. That's what we tried to illustrate with the midpoint on slide 9. We also took the appraiser's judgment that the promises that Avera Health was willing to undertake were worth from $10 to $15 million, and we took the midpoint of that and subtracted that from the midpoint of the appraisal to produce the value of the enterprise before the $5,600,000 was taken out for the city. So focusing on one aspect of the balance sheet, one entry on the balance sheet does not give you a picture of the value of the enterprise. Sharon can show you, I think, what the balance sheet of the operation would look like the day of closing, the day after closing, if that's something that you want us to do.
There was a comparable in our book between the two, the time before and the time after. And, whoop. But,
I think Mary has it on a flash drive, and we can go through it. Certainly, someone other than I should go through it.
The slide that's coming up, is that different than what has been presented to the council?
Yes, it's not in your packet.
Okay.
I believe it's identical to what you may have seen before.
At our January 14th meeting?
January 14th meeting.
Right.
Sharon, speak to that.
you're blushing, Mary.
Where's the step stool? Oh.
And Jane, would you get the one line?
I think we're going to throw up the balance sheet after it's on a different slide, but the balance sheet, basically, we tried to, in this document, go through each of the different cash steps or the steps that you saw on the slide. And so we, basically we labeled them A through F, and then there's a G and an H. It's probably best if Mary just throws up the other. It's not at the top of that, or isn't it in the There you go. I'm going to take a shot at what Charlie's actually asking. You see the appraisal value on the documents that we got from Larson Allen, and it showed that there was a range of $60 to $66 million. And that asset value basically is based upon the balance sheet. So it included the cash, it included the accounts receivable, it included the restricted funds that we've talked about, which is basically our funded depreciation, our bond reserves, our bond repayment accounts. And it was the balance sheet minus the debt. So that $63 million was arrived at by including all of the restricted funds, the $25 million in restricted funds. And then Larson Allen was asked to value, as Dan McInerney has said, what all of the promises were in the proposal that you've seen today. And that reduced that $63 million down by $10 to $15 million, depending upon which range you were looking at. And that was on the document that Dan showed. So, I take it you can't get it any bigger than that. What we did on this document was we actually used our audited financial statements as of June 30th. And then we showed, because when we started working on the transaction, I think we had our September 30th financials at that point in time. So that became the second column. So we worked from our September 30th financials to try and show what we would look like after the transaction happened based upon the items that we've shown you today. And so if you look in that third column, what we did through A through H was to show you all the cash in and cash out through the transaction. I'm not quite sure what your specific question
Well,
is.
I just want to, to be clear, you got $11,408,000 worth of cash assets in the top part of your balance sheet. That is pretty liquid cash. And you got $26,400,000 worth of cash assets that are reserved assets that you made a statement in the paper the other day that they had to be spent on paying off the bonds. That was.
Those are what we currently would have called our restricted funds, which were included in the appraisal done on this balance sheet, which helped to arrive at that $63.6 million. That $25 or $26 million was not in that balance sheet at that time, then the value would have only been $38 million.
Okay.
And then we would still deal with $10 to $15 million in the promises coming off of that $38 million.
Okay. Now, if you want to just keep going up, that's, just, I guess, get close to the bottom line, but, Avera is picking up the accounts receivables, or accounts payable, that we have, that $5.6 million, that's down there, plus they're picking up 2 leases.
They're picking up the CT and the MRI lease as part of the debt.
Leases and stuff like that. So you get down at the end of just if you look at the balance sheet, you got $63 million the day after the sale, the balance sheet is going to be $69,900,000.
That was the valuation that was done. You have to remember, once again, I keep
Yeah, I know,
going
but
back
I'm
to
just
it,
saying,
$10 to
comparing the
$15
two
million.
balance sheets equally, that's the two balance sheets. So there's a, difference about $6,700,000 difference that the balance sheet is higher than the day after the sale and the day before that it was.
The balance sheet is actually being grossed up as part of the transaction and looking at what the building and the equipment was worth, but that, and that's taken care of in this transaction.
And then there'd be $10,000 more going back to the foundation to be included in theirs after the sale. So that's.
But what happens to the actual, I'll be honest, Mary and I were working on this transaction from both sides. We were working on it representing the city of Marshall, but also wanted to make sure that the entity going forward had a strong balance sheet for the future so that we could provide what we need to for the community. That is why Avera Health, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but that's why part of this deal includes the request for the discount, to make sure that we have, a solid foundation going forward into the future. And, we've been upfront about the fact that there is a hefty discount in this transaction, along separately with the $10 million gift going back into the foundation to be used in the future.
I understand your reasoning for what you got forward. And I just wanted the people of Marshall to be able to see the complete deal like I saw it. All right, so when they ask me questions 6 months from now, I can say, you could have been there, you could have saw it. That's what I can say. I understand your reasoning for why you went through the steps you went through. I just want to make it public that this is the figures that are the real figures that are there, right now. All right?
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Any other comments from the council as part of the public hearing?
I just want to throw out that, having been on the negotiation committee, at first when they started throwing out all these figures, when we first finally started seeing some figures of what we were talking about as far as balance sheets and everything, I went home and had cold sweats on the idea of that. I was just grateful that I didn't major in accounting as I started out to do, because it confused me. And I break into that sweat every time that Mike starts to address something next to me, being the accountant. But nonetheless, there was an education process in being involved in this negotiation. And as a council member, I was glad to participate on it. It was a little scary at first to be educated on what we were really talking about. And unfortunately, you're using the term sale, and I know that's what most people are still going to refer to this as a sale. But it's a privatization agreement. And once I became a little more aware of that and educated in the process and the concern, so often people are approaching me, and most people really have been very positive on this, and they want it to go forward, and they do raise some of the questions, as Charlie's raising, about questioning the amounts that are being thrown out there. And you do actually have to it's a hurdle. You have to get over that and look at what we're really talking about. We're not really talking about a vehicle that the city purchased with tax dollars, and now we're selling it, and granted, the city should get back whatever that value is. We're looking at a health service that's provided to the community, that the city, through no tax dollars at all, go into that system. It's a system that's paid for by the users. It's grown to what it is by the users. And for that reason, whatever value, whether it be 38 million or 60 million before discounts or whatever dollar value you want to put into it, bottom line is that should all still be in the facility, because that's really what it was there for. That's what it's grown to be because of meeting the needs of the community. And for that reason, I have no problems with whatever dollar figure we want to throw up there. I have no problem with that staying with the facility. When the mayor threw the challenge out, we're going back several years ago to look at privatization, and that's really what it was when we went into this agreement 4 years ago. It was a privatization agreement of sorts, and it's just refined as we've gone along. We found the right partner for this. They've helped the facility grow and come out of some problems that we really had 10 years ago. Financially, the hospital wasn't anything near what it is now. So it's become the facility it is through that partnership agreement with a very good partner. We want that to continue. We wanted the employees that are there that have done an excellent job in helping that facility become what it is and serve the public as they have, and the users of the hospital and so on. We wanted to make sure that they stayed, so the concern was to make sure that what they were hired under, the PERA agreement and so on, is that they at least come as close to that as possible. They may not come right on the dime, but nonetheless, they're going to be very close based on what projections from the actuaries put forward. So from the viewpoint of participating in this and looking at it as a privatization agreement, not a sale agreement, I'm totally convinced that this is the way to go, regardless of the fact that I know there's a bunch of highlighted items that Mike wants refined still, at least some sentences dotted differently, some different things addressed. But nonetheless, this is a package that has gone through all the review it really needs to go through, and really is going to fulfill the needs of this community in maintaining a facility that will truly be a regional health facility. And I just look forward to moving on with it tonight.
Any other input as part of the public hearing from the council? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Motion by Larry. Who seconded it? Seconded by Dan to close the public hearing. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. There's two actions that will be considered. Dennis, do you want to give a brief explanation of the resolution? Right. And then following the resolution, should it pass, would be the introduction of the ordinance that would actually provide for the transfer of the property.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As the mayor has indicated, if you choose to proceed, you have to consent to what the hospital board is recommending to you. That consent requires that you pass a resolution authorizing entering into the asset transfer agreement and the membership transfer agreement. You've got all those documents in front of you for your review. So first is the resolution which consents to this. Our local ordinance, however, requires that any transfer of real estate must be done by the introduction and subsequent passing of an ordinance. So that would be the second document that would need to be approved, and the ordinance would be introduced this evening and would then be brought up for final passage at the next council meeting. You cannot introduce and pass an ordinance the same meeting, so it'd have to be introduced an ordinance this evening, and that would be to authorize the sale of real estate at some future time, November 1.
And then the third action that I want to be sure that we're all clear on. That would be the action that would be by the Minnesota State Legislature. That would be the triggering factor then would be the resolution or the ordinance. That would,
I think Mr. McInerney has taken the very conservative approach that nothing would be brought forward for legislative action until the ordinance has been passed at the next council meeting. That was my understanding, that they would be willing to wait until that February 10th ordinance approval.
and that is still, the bill has been introduced, the generic bill. Right. Mhm. Right. Okay. Mike?
Yes, I want to make a motion that we deny consideration of the resolution, not the agreement and so forth, the actual wording of the resolution itself. The last paragraph says, resolved that the appropriate officials of the city be and hereby are authorized to make and improve such non-substantive changes and clarifications. I'm uncomfortable with that. The hospital board has been working with this for basically 4 years. They've had thousands of hours of meetings. And now we want to pass this asset transfer agreement and the membership agreement and then let city officials make changes after the fact? No way. We've had 13 attorneys. I can't trust a group of 13 attorneys. I want to see it right here in front of me with the changes.
And as I explained to you, Mr. Bodenheimer, it says non-substantive changes, and I believe, I mean, that's a typographical, a spelling error, or a punctuation error, or something like that. It is the spirit and the intent of the resolution.
Okay, first
I
off.
have a motion. You need a
Yeah, you have a
second?
motion. Is there
I'll
a second?
second it for the sake of discussion.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie to deny the resolution. Now discussion on that motion.
Substantive is in the eyes of the beholder. This is important enough, this is big enough, we've got until November. If there's some changes, there's 2 or 3 changes that have been proposed that are supposedly going to be put in here yet, that were important to me. In meetings with Roger and talks with Roger, I've been a real pain for him in the last week. I've had several meetings with Roger. Those are important to me, and I want to see them before I approve it. And I'd ask the council to deny this and just, we simply do a new resolution without that paragraph.
Other discussion on the motion? Once again, Dennis, as city attorney, your definition of non-substantive changes.
Non-substantive is typographical, clarification, punctuation. We're not changing the intent. It's just to clear up any language, and right now, as Mr. McInerney has said, some of those changes have occurred, and you'll see it in the red line where maybe we've, something was capitalized that shouldn't have been, or whatever, but we're not substantively changing any of the contents. And I believe that, as Mr. McInerney said, the issue related to who's going to pay personal property taxes, that's a substantive change, changing from buyer to seller. That's going to occur, but that'll have to come back here. That's a substantive change.
And during the course of those substantive changes, these non-issues should be resolved. I would hope we can get a final typed copy that's correct before November. I just do not feel comfortable with the way it is here or in the ordinance.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Can we change the wording of it and still proceed tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, right now, you're just saying you don't like the last paragraph of the resolution.
Well,
Correct.
let's hash that out. Can we hash that out now, or what?
That was a motion.
That's the motion.
That's the motion.
Okay, let's do it.
You hash it out by a vote, up or down on the motion.
Other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to deny the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, aye. Division of the House, those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, that motion passes.
And I believe our city attorney has a revised copy of this resolution in hand. I asked him to draft it earlier.
That we have not seen yet.
Everything is the same. Is this the red?
Does Dan have?
No, I think you've probably got the red line version, and then here's the clean copy version. The red line shows the changes. In essence, you would still be approving the asset transfer agreement, still be approving the membership transfer agreement, but not authorize any changes unless those documents come back here for your review.
Okay, does everybody understand this motion?
No,
That
I guess there's no
I will make a
motion.
motion to adopt the corrected, revised version of the asset transfer agreement and the membership transfer agreement.
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously. We'll now consider the introduction of the ordinance that would approve the sale of real property and set a review and consideration for the adoption of that ordinance on February 10th.
Correct.
Dennis, any comments on that proposed ordinance for introduction?
The ordinance would somewhat mirror this resolution by our charter, chapter 12.05. You're going to be selling real estate. We have to have it done by an ordinance. This is very similar to other ordinances that have been introduced throughout the years to sell real estate. The actual ordinance there, since there's 19 separate parcels of real estate involved, the actual ordinance will include the legal description. But again, this does give the city officials the right to make non-substantive changes. So in anticipation of Mr. Bodenheimer's concern, there has been an alternate ordinance drafted just in case.
I would move the alternate.
Well, why don't you pass out that first before you make that motion?
And the change would occur in Section 6 from the one that was previously provided. Section 6 removes the right to make any changes.
Okay, I'll now entertain a motion.
Move the introduction of the ordinance.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Dan. Discussion? You have a input you want to make?
Pardon me, Mayor and council members. I think it's important to clarify that to the extent that you will vote on the ordinance and have voted on the resolution, that you're intending to approve the two changes we discussed, one of which was to shift the responsibility for sales tax from seller to buyer in the asset transfer agreement, and to add an illustration to the membership transfer agreement addressing the issue of an overage in the defeasance costs.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Not entirely clear that that's fully addressed in the resolution, but if it's shown in the minutes, I think that should be sufficient to make it go properly.
As was presented at the public hearing.
Right.
Okay. Other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. Motion passes unanimously. Dennis, you have one left?
No, I was going to say, did Jane get the resolution and ordinance that were, okay.
I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess, but prior to doing that, thank you to the negotiating committee, the hospital board, and all the employees. So thank you very much. Call for a recess at this time.
Well, I would just like to make a comment. Like, 2 out of 3 is good. We've talked about the regionalization and the necessity of that, and I believe firmly in that. I talked to Sharon. 55% of the people served by this hospital in '08 were in the Marshall zip code. Not all city residents, but in the Marshall zip code. 80% were from the county. Now, if we're going to regionalize and become a better health care facility, I think that's great. I think it is good, the recruitment and so forth. I am not real happy with the terms, but 2 out of 3 is pretty good.
At this point, we'll call for a recess. All right.
I'll get over it, I know.
Yay.
Long one? No, I can tell you exactly what I think.
Yeah, I know, yes.
That's good.
Yeah. I voted. Did you say anything? I voted.
Okay, you verbally said yes, right.
It was unanimous.
I just want to make sure, because I
I have no comment.
you don't want to comment?
I think with some of the clarifications that need to be done, right, I honestly believe that. I think we got everything there addressed. I firmly believe. Now we can move forward instead of being a city hospital. We can move forward to a regional medical center, serve the region.
Let's just give them the yellow
I think we
sheet.
got potential to do that now, as Avera has proven, by the surgeons that they have brought, the specialists that they have brought since they came here, the addition of the employees that they brought to the hospital, the addition of the Cancer Institute, the behavior unit, etc. I think now we can move forward in the direction to become that center that we strive to be. I'm totally content.
You, Charlie, you probably had some public what made you Springfield.
Larry told me.
Larry poked you?
Larry said I did. No, I don't. That I'm really, I don't know how to say it. Basically, I want to say I might have wanted more from the sale than we got. But in the very end, what's most important to me is that this community is united and not torn in pieces and not divided and not torn apart. So my outlook was for the whole community as a whole. Could we got $5 million more? You know, maybe we could have. I don't know. But the most important part is that when we walk out of here, we got a hospital and a community that all work together, that live together and stand together, and aren't opposed to each other. And so my vote was concerned with the whole community as a whole, not just the hospital tonight. And would have I voted for it if I just thought about the hospital deal? I might not have. But the community is more important than just the hospital itself.
Thank you, Charlie, bringing up those things. Except I had no idea about all these numbers.
Okay.
I mean, I know that proceeds from this sale.
Well,
It's a very difficult thing to explain.
it's like trusting a doctor to give you medication.
That's right. Like believing what it says in the newspaper.
Well, yeah, I don't, you know.
That this was the
You're
right
welcome.
thing to do.
You're welcome. Say Roger. Say Roger.
Thank you, Gene. I didn't think you were going to be here. Didn't you say at the last meeting you weren't going to be here? But then you decided to. Well, we look forward to seeing you more in the future, so, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis, for drafting those ahead of time.
What? No.
No, that's why we had talked about it, we had Plan B ready to go. Talk to Dave. And Mike said, I'm going to make the motion, but maybe I'll be the only one. Maybe everybody else is comfortable with it. If so, then we don't need the other motion. We have more chance to review.
Well, if you would have listened to
graphical changes.
council about it,
And if there are none, there are none.
City attorney, no, before this meeting even started, we were sitting here, you were sitting right alongside me. He told Bo and I got the copies of the resolutions that you opposed. Redone.
Public information.
Well, you could have heard it.
Wrong.
Well, listen.
Don't talk to me. I'm mad at you.
Hey, you know what?
I'm gonna watch you.
Mike.
You would have been a lot madder than me.
Oh my gosh, Mike.
So just be happy. Don't be so negative all the time.
I'm going to reconvene. He's out.
You know?
I mean, he'll be coming back.
Just think of yourself as a pitcher instead of a negative all the time. Yeah?
I'm sorry.
Jeez.
You're right, I blew up.
Clear it up.
At this time, I'd like to reconvene the meeting of the Marshall City Council. We are on agenda item number 3. This is a public hearing on the new on-sale liquor license for the Lion Street Grill and Bar. I don't anticipate this public hearing is going to take as long as the last night, but I will call on Tom Melbrook to conduct this public hearing.
Mayor and council members, I'm here before you this evening to discuss the issuing of an on-sale liquor license for the Lion Street Grill and Bar. This is a facility that has not been constructed as of this point. The location of where this is going to be constructed is along East Lion Street between the American Inn and Highway 23 bypass. So that's the general area where this facility will be constructed. Everything that's been requested from Mr. Klinkhammer is included in your agenda packet, and everything is in order for the license to be issued to him. The intent of this license is that it would be issued effective June 1st of 2009, and that the fee would be prorated for the balance of the year.
Okay.
Mr. Klinkhammer is here if you have any questions of him.
Okay, maybe just for introduction, very good. Want to come to the...
Can't let them off, Andy.
Hi, I'm Steve Klinkhammer with the Lion Street Grill, the American as well. And even though the license, as stated, is June 1st, we would not be, open for construction. Is going to take longer than that. So we'd probably be looking at August or September. So we hope to be in the ground middle of March, end of March or such. So.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. We'll open up them for public comment as part of this public hearing. Rob, do you have any concerns about this whatsoever from public safety standpoint? No. Very good.
No, I don't think there'd be significant concerns. As a eatery type of environment, that's not usually where we have problems, so wouldn't envision being a problem. And in fact, the more options we've got so that the groups are spread out a little more probably is a good thing.
Yeah. Very good. Any other input as part of this public hearing? Input from the council as part of the public hearing?
I just want to ask one question. You know, are you aware of the ordinance that we'd taken place that, where we have a 10 o'clock for kids to be out of the bars? I realize yours is probably going to be more, the way I'm understanding, is going to be more like an Applebee's. So you'll be doing more volume in food than alcohol?
Yes, yep, that is our hope. So we're more family-oriented.
Okay.
Our sports grill, we do say that sports grill, but we're more of like a line of an Applebee's.
Okay, you're aware that
Yes, I am.
that ordinance.
I'm aware,
Okay, I just want to
yeah.
make sure of that.
Yeah, a little disappointed in it because, I think a lot of college kids look for, that don't go out and party, are looking for a place to be in an environment where they can
Sell more
sit back
food.
and eat. Yeah, so, yeah, more.
Okay. Other input as part of the public hearing? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie to close the public hearing. Or, excuse me, we'll correct that. The second was by Larry. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to close the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We'll now consider the issuance of approving the on-sale liquor license for this.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? The only discussion would be, a welcome addition, and thank you for the investment in the community. Other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, the next item then is the consent agenda. We do have the consent agenda is listed up on the board. The items on the consent agenda would be a temporary on-sale liquor license for the Catholic Daughters of America for April 25th, 2009. The second would be a consideration of approval of Sunday liquor license for the Win Nickel. Third is the consideration of the resolution accepting the donation of personal property. Fourth is consider the authorization to declare vehicles as surplus property. Fifth would be the establishment of the Economic Development Authority as the developer/marketer of city-owned, privately owned commercial property for the city of Marshall. And then finally are the consideration of the approval of the bills and project payments. Any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants to remove for purposes of separate discussion?
Yes, C.
Okay, any other item to be removed? If not, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda with the exception of C.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Mike. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, 4C is consideration of the resolution accepting the donation of personal property. Mike?
Well, yes, I guess I don't like to see this on the consent agenda. Dale and Deb Bisbee have donated money to the fire department in the amount of $1,000 for turnout gear. This is, I believe, about the fourth year, and they have given a total of probably $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000. Every year they make a donation in honor of their his father, who was a firefighter. They live in the Twin Cities. There's no reason that they should be making a donation to the city of Marshall other than they feel they want to pay the city back, or the fire department. So, move approval.
Motion by Mike.
Second.
Seconded by Larry for the resolution that would accept the donation of the personal property and also the recognition of the significance of this donation, as Mr. Bodenheimer had outlined, and we'll be sure that that gets recorded in the minutes, as well as a formal thank you go back to the Bisbee heirs.
And I guess I wouldn't mind seeing, I know the fire department always sends them a letter and have them at the annual party, but it'd be nice to have a card just going from the city itself.
Right. So that should be recorded in the minutes. Just other discussion on that?
I just, going forward, if we could just make a note, Ben, if you could make a note, just put it in a regular agenda item rather than a consent agenda.
For any donations that are received by the city, you want on the new business, is that what you're asking?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 5 was a presentation of the Safe and Sober Award, and I will call on, Rob, are you going to introduce this, and then as the recipient of your department?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
This, I guess I'd just like to introduce Brad Coleman, who is the regional representative for the Traffic Safety, Office of Traffic Safety with the state of Minnesota, that's here to give the presentation. And also would like to recognize Eric Klinken, that coordinates our program for our department, and have him as a part of this as well, because he's a big part of why our program goes so well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Brad and have him talk to you.
Okay, welcome, Brad.
This is probably the longest award it's ever taken you time-wise.
Well, I've got about a half hour, 45 minutes. No, I know you people are busy. I was the chief of police in the city of St. Peter for years, so I know what you guys go through. You spend a lot of time talking about very important issues. Anyway, thank you. I'm Brad Coleman. I'm the law enforcement liaison for the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Office of Traffic Safety. I'm here today to present you, Marshall Police Department, an award from the Department of Public Safety. Now, first I want to say why does the Department of Public Safety give awards? First of all, it's a Traffic Safety Award. I think I probably said this before. It's the #1 killer reason people die, young people. That's the #1 reason. Cause of death is a traffic crash. If somebody below the age of 34 is going to die, they're probably going to die of a traffic crash. They're probably 50% of them won't have a seatbelt on. A third of them, there's going to be alcohol involved somehow. There's going to probably be speed involved. And the greatest group that we look at, and it's, you know, we're in a school building, 16 to 24. They're the highest risk. Them are the kids that are dying. So if somebody from Marshall is going to get killed, it's probably the age group, you know, if you're going to roll the dice. I'm here to present an award to Marshall Police Department for their activities for 2008 to prevent fatalities and to reduce serious injuries and to reduce the related costs. You just talked about a new hospital or a change of the hospital. Minnesota cost $1.7 billion last year, traffic crashes. Well, it's a big cost. A lot of it is traumatic brain injuries. But anyway, getting back to why I'm here, I could go on all night on this, and you don't want to listen to me all night, I know that, is every year, agencies submit what they've done the past year in the area of outreach, education, and enforcement. So the program, Safe and Sober, Click It or Ticket, Over the Limit Under Arrest, is all wrapped up in education and outreach, trying to get people to understand that impaired driving, drunk driving is dangerous. It's against the law. Failure to wear a seatbelt is #1 dangerous. That's the most dangerous thing a person could do, is not wear a seatbelt. Speeding, distracted driving, very dangerous, and people are dying every day because of it. 41,000 in the United States every year. Anyway, agencies submit a report of what they've done in the past year, and what it looks like is a binder like this. It shows what the agency did to educate the community for outreach to try to seek voluntary compliance. These guys do not want to arrest anyone. They want people to obey the law. I know that for a fact. They would rather have everybody obey the law, not go to any fatal crashes or serious injuries. So they do this outreach and try to convince people that do have safe driving behavior, especially the kids. And then they follow it up with good, sound, professional enforcement. It's against the law to drink and drive. It's dangerous to drink and drive. The community, they don't want drunk drivers on the roadways. So if you choose to do that, we will be watching for you and we'll take you off the roadway. We'll make your roadways safe and Marshall. That's what they do. Well, anyway, I'm proud to say that Marshall Police Department, Chief Rob Yant, Officer Eric Clinton, and the whole crew, this isn't a one-man or two-man show. The chief is very, very supportive, and it wouldn't happen without him. Eric takes the lead, and he does just a fabulous job of coordinating. He's my contact from the state, so I can tell him that these are the programs coming down, and he can coordinate it for the agency. Anyway, your agency won first place this past year, 2008. Only 2 agencies in the state of Minnesota got first place. They were top, not two first place. They were the first according to the rating. They were the best of the best in the state of Minnesota. And this isn't the first year they've done that. I think this is, I don't know how many years, third year. And this comes with it. It's not just a pretty plaque to hang on the wall. It comes with $4,500 grant that they can use this coming year. So, and it's monies that are to be used for new things, additional things from what they already currently have. So with that, I guess open it up to questions. There's 16 grants in the state of Minnesota, or 16 awards given. $47,000 total was given to agencies. And I am just extremely proud of these people. They wouldn't be able to do their job without you. So you got to pat yourself on the back. They're saving lives because you're giving them this political support that they need to do that, or they couldn't do that. The state of Minnesota recognizes that. They know Marshall. They know the Marshall City Council supports the police department. They know the police department does a fabulous job. So with that, I want to thank Eric, Chief Yant, for the wonderful work you've done over the past years. You're saving lives. There are people living in this area that wouldn't be living today if it weren't for what them guys do. Thank you.
Well, and just a word, thank you for our department, for the service and the leadership that goes into making this possible, and also thank for the Department of Public Safety for providing the ongoing encouragement and recognition of the very strong efforts that are being made by our local professionals. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If we have an agency in Minnesota were like these guys, I wouldn't have a job, which would be okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Agenda item number 6 is the consideration of the approval of the AWARE program, and I will call on Greg Swanson, who in addition to his duties in the engineering department also is working with the safety program. Correct?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Council, Mayor. We're here to talk about the safety program that we've developed. And basically, we're trying to reduce our workplace accidents and our injury reduction. And this is the Minnesota OSHA
Move over a
requirement.
little bit. Yes, there you go.
And we need to do this. Does anybody have any questions? The little memorandum that came with?
I think it's the importance of this is not only the reduction of the accidents and to the personal health of the employees, but also it impacts our costs in workers' compensation and health insurance and things. So there's
Our workman's comp.
a number of benefits to a program like this. Questions for Greg?
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Motion by Dan.
Second.
Seconded by Mike. Discussion?
I got one question. Does this include the utilities too, or is it just the city of Marshall?
This includes just the city of Marshall. The utilities has their own AWARE program.
Okay. But, okay, that's fine. I know that we share a workman's comp program.
Yes, and we share our coordinator with, our current coordinator does double duty. He works for the city of Marshall and he works for utilities.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Sheila, do you have anything you wanted to add on that?
been waiting.
I'm brand new to the safety committee, but Greg has been on this for a number of years, and we worked together to create this document. The base model of it came from the League of Minnesota Cities, so we used that, but we fashioned it to make sure that our employees understood their responsibilities with it, along with the managers understanding theirs. Your responsibility is to approve this, and along with the vision statement, show our employees that you also support the safety efforts that our employees are working towards.
Good. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, thanks.
Agenda item number 7 is consideration of Western Community Action Memorandum of Understanding for the Western Community Action Transit Building Agreement and the architectural agreement with TSP Incorporated. Jeanette?
Thank you. Mayor and Council, I'm Jeanette Porter, alias Sagari, and I'm here this evening to present to you what we see as a viable option for a new addition to our existing transit facility that was just completed this summer. And about the time we barely had the asphalt put in, we got notice from the Department of Transportation that they had additional dollars that would help us to expand the existing garage. And so what we have before you is a location. We've tried different locations right next to our existing building, but what we have dollars for is to add 6 stalls. It would be a cold storage bus garage expansion. And like I said, at first we tried working with plans with TSP to put that addition right next to our existing garage and the lower bottom there. But because of soil corrections and a lot of other reasons, we put the building proposal for the expansion across the road there. Thank you. And that is the most favorable site. It's the location that we would be able to most cost efficiently hook up to sewer and the water line instead of going all the way around the building. We also had significant soil correction in the location of where our transit facility is, so going across the road would also alleviate some of those costs. What we have from MnDOT is $192,000 if they ever get the contract to us. That is an amendment to our existing contract. So as far as MnDOT is concerned, this is just an amendment. It's not another contract. But for the sake of moving forward and because it's one project was just completed and we're starting another project, we are providing new agreements with, hopefully, with the City of Marshall in approving the land so that we can put this building across the road. And it would be in the same nature as what the first bus facility agreement was. The only difference is that we are not coming before the city or the county asking for financial dollars in support of this project. MnDOT will provide $192,000 and Western Community Action will provide the local share, the 20% local share. So it could be anywhere between $40,000 and up to $70,000 depending on what our costs end up being. But the Western Community Action Board did approve this project, and they are in favor of the fact that, you know, we have buses that have already basically filled the existing garage. If we could have had these dollars up front and known that they were coming, we would have planned a little differently, but we didn't. We worked with the dollars we had to have a storage facility that would house the buses that support the City of Marshall and the county. Right now we have almost all 14 stalls filled in the new facility, and we do anticipate we will be growing. We will be getting 2 more buses. And so it's something that as long as the dollars are there and the opportunity is available to put this construction forward, I'd like to ask for your approval to act on it pending all the final details with the contract or the amendment with MnDOT. The Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Marshall, again, is very similar. What we're asking is that the City of Marshall act as our agent in helping with the construction and overseeing the work that we contract, that we would contract with TSP, since they're familiar with the project and have already put a lot of work into this, and they know what we need to deal with. We'd like the city to act as our agent. Then the other agreement that is before you, or is in still draft form, is the fact that we would lease the land, but we would have to hold title, just like in the first one. But it does provide opportunity for the city then to add on. We cannot sell the building because you own the property, and basically we're pretty much held to this project. MnDOT owns all of it anyways. So those are the things that we have before you this evening, is just extending what was originally started, adding 6 more stalls. What's different is, again, it's cold storage. We'd be able to put 6 buses in there and prepare for expansion.
Jeanette, the one question I would have, and you may want to redirect this to Shane in engineering or Ron from TSP, but in the selection of the actual location, has the surface water management been considered, and the drainage issues been considered in that location? Shane, I'll probably have you come up.
Yes, I believe Glenn has reviewed this site location with them, and he has actually recommended that it be put across the street. He also recommended that the driveways line up across from each other in case the gravel path in between them is developed or further improved. I believe that that would be a more desirable location on either side of the existing facility, because it encroaches on the dike system, and there's some setbacks that we had concerns with relative to that. And so I believe this is the best location.
Thank you. Charlie?
Yeah, the look of that's going to be pretty much the same look as the one we got. It's going to be a 3-door unit. You're going to be opening and then driving straight in and parking to it. And it's going to have a cement floor?
Yes, it'll have a cement floor with the drain.
Just not heated?
Not heated.
Other questions for Jeanette?
Are you going to park the buses from Head Start there too, or not? Is that one of the places that you're considering?
Head Start would like us to take over the transportation, so that would be an additional 2 buses, 2 to 3 of their buses that would become part of our fleet.
Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Charlie. Discussion?
All right. These documents are still coming together, so I think any approval would have to be subject to, formal review. We don't have a legal description, and these are the types of things that cause real estate lawyers heartburn. We own the property, but somebody else is putting their their building there. They don't own the underground, they don't own the land, and we don't own the building. I would just suggest that it be subject to a review and approval of the documents as they are developed.
Dan? Charlie? Okay. Any other discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Jane, you have the vote? Okay, thank you,
you.
Jeanette. Anything else? Okay. Agenda item number 9, consider the approval, or,
8.
8, consider the approval of the Employee Service Award Program.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. I have a memo included in your packet for your information. Again, this is one item that the Personnel Committee has reviewed and made unanimous approval to accept moving forward with this one. We were going to present it along with a comprehensive review and approval later this year with the personnel policy amendments. However, we now realize that we have a lot of work that we're doing, I guess, researching the various proposed changes to the personnel policy. It's just very comprehensive and takes a lot of background work, and in particular, too, now with, you know, more potential scrutiny on or review of the detailed benefits, I think we need more time. But in the meantime, we did just have our annual employee recognition event, and this was one item that I thought, you know, that if we approved the personnel policy changes mid-year, these people wouldn't have benefited by it. So I wanted to propose to the City Council that we do move forward and implement it at January 1st of this year, so that those people that got service awards would get approved, would get the new rates or dollar valuations, I guess, if you will, on the service awards. Basically, where it's going from, it shows the previous schedule, but the Personnel Committee recommended just to simplify it and do basically a $10 per service year, and then we do them in 5-year increments for years of service. And we do actually, we do not allow cash payout. There was debate about whether we should allow cash equivalent to be used rather than actual gifts, but we felt that the gifts were more meaningful, and if people didn't want the gift, that they would be able to utilize the donation if they reach that certain threshold option. So there is a financial impact because there are substantial increases, and you can see in there some of the dollar values are more than doubling or doubling in many cases. So there is an increased cost, but also in taking a look at the types of gifts there are, you know, at the lower cost value, it gets a little, it's not as tasteful, I guess, with some of the things that we potentially offer out. And so the committee did review that and made a recommendation. I'd recommend moving forward with the new schedule within the existing personnel policy.
This was reviewed by the Personnel Committee. Any comments from the Personnel Committee?
You're right. We went over this on the Personnel Committee, and if you look at the increases that are projected and the impact of $1,000, I think for employee morale, if nothing else, that's a small token of pay. So I'd move approval of the awards program.
Second.
Motion by Larry, seconded by Mike. Discussion? There's no discussion. Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Agenda item number 9, consideration of establishment of a freeze on the wage schedule step increase. Ben?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. This has been something that we discussed at the end of the year budget as we finalized it in 2008 in late December. However, as you recall, the City Council adopted no change to the general wage schedule. However, the Council did not implement any restrictions on increases in steps. About about 1/3 of our employees would fall into the situation where they are not at the top of their step schedule. And I think that was one of the discussions that the council had is that there was, not all employees would be impacted, that they wanted to continue that. However, I have been continuing to track actions taken by the legislature and behind-the-scene discussions about what's being projected for local government aid reductions. Some of you might have seen the governor came out with his budget proposal today. As you might recall, we had a 20% cut in our second half payment in 2008 for our local government aid, which is about $270,000. We are projecting now, or the governor, I'm sorry, is proposing a 15% cut for 2009 in the overall payment and 31% in 2010. The Department of Revenue has published, if those were to go forward at those rates that the governor has proposed, what the cuts will be. There was an email very late in the day that went out that said they may have had an error in the formula that they used, and the Department of Revenue is reviewing it. But I would like to at least throw out there what they sent out originally, that would translate to the City of Marshall a cut in 2009 in the amount of $392,055, and the 2010 LGA reduction would be $874,948. Obviously, that is particularly the 2010 numbers are very large numbers. The state budget gap that's being used to balance the budget is $4.8 billion that they're looking at. However, there is behind-the-scenes talk, too, that in February, when the new economic report comes out, they could be upwards of $7 million from the $4.8 billion where they're at now. So it could mean that although this is where they're at with the legislature now, if things get worse, potentially they could come back, they'd have to come back and come up with further reductions or revenue sources, I guess you would. So with that, I'm proposing that to keep all of our options open as far as what we might do to be able to deal with any shortfalls that we have from what we have budgeted in our revenue sources, that we basically have everything on the table, which includes the wage issue, which, as you know, we adopted a 1.5% wage increase, but we didn't implement it. We basically said if things go well, that's potentially back on the table, but not guaranteed to be. I think my recommendation too would be for the same thing for the step increases, that we implement effective February 1st, step freeze until basically to leave it open until later in the year to determine whether or not we want to permanently leave that off for the entire year or going out even further. It translates into, for 1 year only, about $42,000 that would be potentially saved there. Again, I think that we're going to have some pretty large challenges ahead of us. The next step that we have, besides the restrictions that we've done on some of the capital spending, wage freeze, is I would anticipate us taking a look at kind of prioritizing some of our services and whether or not there are things, particularly in the spring and summer when there are additional activities and things done then. So I think now will be the time that we'll be starting to review some of those details to see what we can do as far as implementing that. I did hold a employee-wide voluntary informational meeting today that I was bringing this proposal to the City Council tonight. And so the employees are aware that this proposal was brought forward, or would be brought forward this evening. Again, and what I'm proposing is that by doing it now versus waiting too, we have a number of employees that would be scheduled here after the 1st of February that their steps would become due. So if we delayed the decision like to the next council meeting, there would be people who would be eligible for receiving that step increase. And I think from a fairness standpoint, I'd like to implement it immediately in order to provide the most flexibility so that some people aren't getting their steps and then others aren't. Again, we could always go back at a later time and retroactively pay back what they would have been paid if we choose to do that. This just leaves all the options on the table. With that, there is a webinar, web-based conference that is going to be available through the League of Minnesota Cities on Friday afternoon. If you're interested, you can log into the League of Minnesota Cities site and from your computer, or if you don't have a computer, we could set you up somewhere at City Hall. I'm sure there'll be an open spot that we could get you on there too. I think there's going to be a few staff people in my office watching it. I am going to be out of town on Friday afternoon, but I know Tom and I think Sheila Dubs are going to be in there. But anyway, some cities did implement increases as I presented. It's kind of across the board. There are some cities that have freezes, others that did increases. But I think particularly those cities that didn't have union contracts that were already in effect, a number of them did take advantage of the freeze, and I think it provides the most flexibility. So with that, I would recommend that the council pass a motion to freeze the wage step schedule effective on the 1st of February, and that we would be further evaluating this at a later date as far as whether that would be lifted.
And were there any employees that received a step adjustment in January?
We had one employee that received an adjustment in early January.
Questions for Ben?
Since one did get an increase in January, if we're going to do this, should we not run it till the end of January so that person doesn't get a second increase while the others didn't get any?
And I think that by putting the freeze into effect, and we can make note of that, we can take that into consideration as far as what our permanent decision is, as far as how long this might last or not. Certainly, I think that should be considered.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Larry. Discussion?
I want a clarification of what you said, Mike. I didn't quite understand.
No, if somebody did get an increase in January, this should go through, this 1 year moratorium should go through the end of next January, so that person doesn't get another increase next January when nobody got one this year.
So it'll still be a 12-month moratorium.
There's nobody in between now and the end of January that's doing one, is there?
No.
Okay.
And that's why I made it.
All right. I understand it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Just to make it,
Other discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion passes. The agenda item number 10, Board and Commission report. First off, pardon me, Board and Commission report, I would say that our order of the report is changed at the request of the videographers so that they're not bouncing back and forth, okay? So from my standpoint, actually my boards and commissions have not met since our last meeting. Jenny?
The library board met last Monday.
Friday,
Yeah.
Friday.
Oh, yeah, it was Friday.
Canceled due to weather, so we
That's right.
rescheduled to Friday.
Should have been Monday, okay. And I have, they have met with TSP and talked about an alternative adoption to their building. Yeah, go ahead and pass them down. And new numbers on the back. On one side is what you were presented with last year with the inflated numbers. And then the January numbers for this year with a scaled down version of the building going from the original 28 or almost 30,000. And they're scaling it down to about 23,000. And yet their numbers are still not within what they have acquired to this point. So I just wanted, this is just for informational purposes only. They also passed a wage freeze and steps increase freeze for this year as well. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Larry?
I should have reported on Marshall Community Services at our last meeting, but contrary to what you might believe, I was not here. What we discussed at that community service thing, how's that, Tom? You better? I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Car estates are south of the highway. They're looking at that park. That looks like that's going to be a go. Bob Carr has done some things to make that probably affordable for this year. I got too short. Oh, there it is. Okay. Also, we're looking at tying the bike trails from the north side of town into the south side of town. There's a government grant for that in the downtown park area with the 9/11 structure. That looks like that has some potential to go because there's some private funding coming in for that. That's the only ones that have met. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Charlie?
Nothing.
Mike? Reynolds?
Utilities met last week. We had a presentation from Bremer on investments this past year. Obviously, a little bit of a downturn based on the economy, but it was interesting seeing how some investments did quite well and some struggled. But nonetheless, Wells Fargo wasn't available, and we'll be doing their presentation next month.
Okay, Mike?
Yes, Airport Commission did meet. Glenn gave a report. He had a meeting with Great Lakes on service. Sounds rather promising. Lyon County Enterprise was meeting tonight. Ways and Means has met. There'll be a recommendation coming forward, and so same thing at L&O. Basically, everything's referred back for to get more detail. They simply wanted input, a feel on the L&O, so that's it.
Okay, and Dan?
None of them have met.
Okay, we'll move on. Agenda item number 11, staff reports. Ben?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. I do believe we have a date set here next week on February 3rd for discussion of our work plan for 2009-10. Basically, it's an opportunity kind of in a work session setting to sit down and lay out some of the policies that we'll be looking at in the upcoming year and projects, and not necessarily that we're going to get a lot of direct feedback, but laying out how we might address different projects or issues so that the council kind of buys into that or provides any direction if we're not headed in the right direction to get feedback from the city staff. So I'm going to be putting together some background information for that to get out in advance. A lot of it will be provided at the actual meeting. I think that our intention is to do it here. I'll verify that. I don't know if that was sent out or communicated yet, but I thought some of the technologies that this room has, we might use the overheads. If not, City Hall would work out just fine too. would be a publicly posted meeting, but really a work session that would have no formal action taken at it. If there's anything in particular that you want to give feedback on things you want to talk about, or you just want to get a taste of where we're heading with some of that, you're welcome to give me a call or stop in too in advance of getting the information out. I had intended, you might have noticed, I had intended to get the budget printed up last Friday. It's not completed yet. The finance said that all the numbers are good now for printing purposes, so we will be working to print up that final 2009 budget report that will be distributed out in the very near future too. But wanted to let you know that we haven't forgot about that, and it is coming. You might want to take a look at the web portal site. It continues to kind of be a work in progress, and they're updating some things. Mark Hansen went through some meeting functions that are going to be on there, which kind of got me a little excited, where on the calendar that they'll have under boards and commissions, and this is just one example of things that they're adding to it, we'd be able to list all of our city public meetings directly on there, and it would go out for the entire year or further. And we can, as times come up, we can put in those meetings. When the agendas are ready, we can put them right onto the website where the public can have access to them. We could also scan in our board packets and things, just, you know, for further information for the public to be aware of and transparency for us to have to communicate what's going on. So that's another added function that I'm excited about, and also might mean another way for us to get information out to even our board members too. Again, we'd always offer the paper version too, but for those who might want to see what's coming up, we'd have that available too. And then we could also be putting our minutes on there. So continuing to work on that project as well.
Ben, I want to interrupt you on that, and perhaps Tom may have an opinion on this. With that function on the web portal, do we have the ability to designate that as the publication of documents or public notice in that, and then, as Lyon County did, publish a small notice referencing the web or internet-based for public documents as a way then of saving on publication costs?
Funny you should mention that, is that we are working on that, and what we're looking at doing, I don't remember what the techie term is for it, but at the top of the page where you can click on like the school lunch menu and it comes down, we're looking at adding a tab there that would be public notices, and then we would put anything in there like that we would be required to publish, we would put there. State law currently does mandate that we adopt a local newspaper and publish in there for a number of things such as ordinances, meeting notices. So unless they lift that mandate, we can put it to our website, but we still have to utilize our local paper. However, and I didn't get a chance to read the entire or see the full proposal by the governor, but one of the things on both sides of the political aisle that are being proposed is a waiver of a lot of the mandates that the state has, and this is one that I thought potentially we could take advantage of in order to save money, basically, that we might be able to, and it sounds like there'd probably have to be a council action taken in order to do this, but we would be able to potentially request to waive our requirement to publish in the paper and adopt our city website as the official public notice for that. But we can't, under current law, do that. So, but that is something we're looking at, and even if we have to still publish, we'll probably start utilizing that just to have that in our current location. There are a number of other exciting things in Ways and Means Committee where we also are looking at a tab where we would have a bidding site where anytime we're going out soliciting anything, we would put it on our city website and people could subscribe to be sent email notifications whenever something new comes up there. So if there's a contract we wanted to know when we're going out for a service bid or to buy paper, they could log in and subscribe to that service, and they'd get sent notice of it. We would still be able to contact them for bids, but it's just another way to kind of communicate and get the information out. So kind of every day there's new things that we're taking a look at, but those are a couple of functions too.
Good.
I see that our chamber director is here in the audience this evening, and thanks for coming. One thing that I didn't plan to comment on, but since he's here, I thought I'd just mention that the Chamber Board, in part of our annual membership review, which we are now doing through the Economic Development Authority, which I would expect that they would be acting on at next meeting, we're running our Chamber membership through the EDA. that I've talked about with the city council. Along with that, we did request to see if there was any opportunity for a city representative to serve on the, with the board, not as a voting member though, and so we were asking that our economic development director, Mark Hansen, be able to basically sit in the meetings, be able to provide input as to what he's up to kind of open that door of communication. And the chamber has found a way that they support implementing that. I think they called it a senior advisor position or something. And so I wanted to say thank you for taking that into consideration and continuing to kind of build that positive, open communication between our business entities there that are trying to provide that expansion. So I just wanted to make that comment. With that, there are a number of other things, but those are the main points I wanted to hit on this evening, unless there's any questions.
Question for Ben? Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item number 12, council member individual items. Jenny?
No, thank you.
Larry?
None.
Charlie? Dan? Mike?
Just one real quick thing. If you noticed in the paper, I think a thank you if you see any of the fire department members. I believe there was over 30 of them that went over to help move the museum one evening. That's above and beyond the normal duties. I think it speaks well for them.
Very good, thank you. Mike?
Just so you know, look for it early next week. I'll get the summation out of Ben's evaluation for last year, and then we need to line up a meeting with Ben on that.
Okay. And I'll just have two very quick things. We worked with the City of Granite Falls to have a Transportation Highway 23 forum that we, under the Chamber Transportation Committee, was held last Wednesday evening. It was actually hosted by the mayor of Granite Falls. Excellent attendance all the way from Pipestone to Wilmer. I think a lot of understanding about the importance of Highway 23, as well as the long-term need to continue to try to address that issue with the state and more so with the federal legislators, and potentially be in position for attention to Highway 23. So that was held. Secondly, there was some publicity in the paper, but Montevideo has been working for some time, the city of Montevideo, and then the 5 surrounding counties of Chippewa County have been working to try to establish a veterans home in the community. And while we're city marshals outside of those 5 counties, that certainly would be a regional asset that would serve the veterans in our area too. So the mayor of Montevideo has asked me to submit on behalf of the city of Marshall a letter of support. There's no monetary contributions, but a letter of support on behalf of the city, and I would intend to do that unless I see objection from anyone on the council. Okay?
You gonna announce those?
Oh, yes. And then one other item is not on the agenda is the appointment of members to the Planning Commission. Earlier this evening, the Planning Commission, or the City Council, met in special session to interview applicants for the Planning Commission, and based on those interviews at that special meeting, I would recommend that Chris Shover be appointed to an unexpired term on the Planning Commission that will expire May 31st of 2009, and Mr. James Lazinski be appointed to an unexpired term on the Planning Commission that will expire on May 31st, 2010. And I would offer that as a recommendation, entertain a motion to affirm that.
So moved.
Motion by Larry, seconded by Mike. Discussion? Now I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. You see the information items on the agenda. Is there anything else to come forward from the council? Dennis, do you have anything more?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Ben, do you have anything more? Staff? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Larry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Just a second, please.
Our